Good morning, everybody. We are back with day 4 when things get really interesting from the 2025 World Cup. Will Anderson here, as I have been for the previous 3 days, and we have a special treat for you in the booth, everybody. The OG Scrabble commentating GOAT, Jesse Matthews. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
But of course, I had to come back for at least a little bit. And for those who know, I have a traditional way of saying hello to the one and only William Anderson as we get to cover some Collins action here. I am excited. I'm a little rusty. I hope you'll forgive me now that we have a couple of games. Going to get back up to speed. Will's been letting me know. Nigel's Nigeling and Collins is Collinsing as we are doing this morning. I'm assuming these boys are near the top of the board.
It's true. Yeah. So we are sticking with Collins. And for the record, Jesse is very consistent with that greeting. I love the William that I get every time I see Jesse. And today being no exception, of course. And we've got Josh Castellano currently in first place, as he was at the end of day 2 as well, 15-6. Alex Seaholm, former North American Scrabble champion, right behind him, just a couple wins back in 4th place right now. Nobody in this division is doing Nigel things with records like 20-1, which is where Nigel currently is in the WoW division. We are very likely to check back in with him this afternoon. Collins much more knotted up, Jesse, the likes of Josh Castellano. No surprise also to see Dave Wiegand right in the mix. Wellington Jighere, amazing players to watch.
I'm just going to pull up the standings list here at least so I can make sure I know somewhat what I'm talking about as we go on here. Will, would you mind dropping a link for me in our little chat just so I can
Absolutely.
open?
Yep. So standings are going to be right here for you. And in the meantime, Alec with kind of a weird opening rack. He plays which that's probably worth putting on the board. Could have been interesting also to exchange tiles here with those really nice bingo tiles, multiple R's, several E's. Can't really quibble with putting a word on the board here either, because I'm not sure what exactly you would change if you're Alec here. And he's drawn a little bit weirdly. He might be at the mercy of Josh's next play to get a bingo down there. So short opening. I'm sure opinions are divided on this, Jesse. Would you play or exchange tiles? Easy to go either direction.
I was just going to say, I have a really hard time with racks like this one where there's plainly nothing to do as far as like a bingo anyway. And it's just, do you trade 1? Do you trade 3? Do you play for 6 points? It's kind of like, it all sucks, quite frankly. So like, what do you do? And it looked like, based on the choices that were on the lovely Quackle Analyzer, they all were kind of like this. So I'd have a hard time changing, but it also is like, hi, here's a free double letter score with the ability to add high counters very quickly. It's just like, I don't know. I get into the spiral very quickly if I try to think too much about it. So I just pick one. It's like, oh, I hope it's okay.
Yeah, at some point, the time becomes more valuable than the, splitting hairs of the equity. I guess my big question is, why not ERE if you're going to play those letters, and maybe try to avoid placing an E next to a double letter score? There are some problems with that as well, different hooks on either side. But I think if I was going to play those 3, I'd probably try to mix up the order. But again, these are the hair splittingest of hair splitting decisions. And meanwhile, Josh is trying to figure out what to do. He's got a bunch of different options here. He could just plop down his X if he wanted to play XU, but maybe the rest of the tiles aren't quite good enough. He's thinking about Codex hooking Reed, Jesse. That looks pretty nice. You'd like to get rid of the U if you could, and that does accomplish that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this particular play. Puts you up quickly. It's blockish, I like to say, with the C and the X in either position. You're not trying to block, obviously, but it's also not doing your opponent any favors and leaving anything super easy to score with in response, other than perhaps paralleling the X, but even that's not too bad. In a worst case scenario, if they were to bingo or bonus back right away, you're probably going to have the triple lane open and you should be doing just fine in response.
It's an interesting question where to put Caudex, as it actually goes on either side, the dree hook. Maybe that's not quite as normal of a word as read on the other side, but you get the same score playing on either side with Caudex. And ultimately, Josh going back to just our old mainstay 2-letter word XU, maybe liking that he has an O for EXO, but he does not have a tile that goes under the U. So he would have to draw one. He was going to get underlaps there. So yeah, tough call there. I'm not sure if I have a strong feeling. I do feel like this leave maybe becomes a bingo, hooking Dree or Cree sometimes, or maybe Dex, but maybe not enough to justify sacrificing a handful of points against Caudex. Very difficult decision. Now, I'm not about to sit here and say that was some kind of huge error, but wow, look at that, Jesse. Josh with the Z setup. He just had to draw it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Z now playing right on top here. Josh did not have that tile when he played XU, but if somehow Alec does not obstruct that spot, which seems unlikely, it feels like EAR. Very natural play for Alec here. No bingos available for him. You can keep a solid bingo lead with that play and undouble your A's at a cost of giving up that valuable E. I think that seems like a nice in between play, Jesse, rather than fish 1A for an incredibly low score. And instead, Alec plays Rye. That's an interesting choice. He wants to keep that E, but it does expose a triple when maybe that wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Rye. Uh, I'm not really sure how much that gives back that he couldn't have already accomplished with ear, or even if you were to really have some cojones and just play R for 3 points. I'm not sure what Rye would do that the other two don't. Although I'd have a hard time playing R, for just the 3 points. I'm not sure.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly this play. If Alec had any inkling that Josh had the Z, which I don't think you can, he probably would pick something different because now, as you can see, the Z playing for 60 points in that lucrative spot on top of the A of Rye. So Josh, with a very simple word of zoo, getting a bingo score there. And Josh is out to the races in this game. Alec continues to struggle with these racks that are kind of low point in nature, but no bingos available. If Josh draws something good, that a 7-letter bingo, for example, it feels like it's always going to play hooking Re. So this game could start to stretch away in Josh's favor with one more good draw here. JY, probably not what he had in mind towards that end.
Yeah, there's back at the way back when I played at the Calgary Scrabble Club, all the time there was a player named Shannon who would describe these as mocking racks, because he felt they were mocking him in the sense there was no bingo and that they were nice enough letters, but that he couldn't actually pull the trigger with any playable bingo words. So yeah, mocking racks. I was just actually going to describe that, but you kind of segued into that very nicely. That sums up Alec's racks so far, I would say.
That's a great term. I haven't heard that before, but it definitely mirrors the feeling that you get during a game when you have these sets of letters that feel like they're trolling you almost. So mocking, maybe the more elegant way of saying trolling. So
Yes, I think this is pre social media era that Shannon first started saying this. So yeah, there was probably that elegance still before the trolls under the bridge,
makes
literal or
sense.
otherwise. Oh, we got some Yage potentially going on here.
Yeah, so that would be an interesting play. Of course, sometimes when you are approaching a Scrabble turn, as Josh is here, you're looking at your tiles and you're thinking to yourself, what word would I love to play here? And the answer could be JAY or Yahe, however you would say that. Well, that's newly added recently. Yajae. You'd love to find a good spot to play that. It's like the best place to do so would be right here, hooking Bona on the board, and that might be a little bit too volatile. And Josh making a much safer um, play of decay here for 44. Yes, this does leave the J, not a great bingo tile, but I think this play is significantly safer, Jesse. I kind of like it here.
Yeah, I think this is pretty sound. Perhaps the only consideration would be both the hooks that he had for re are now gone. So of course he's just playing more a draw. But the nice thing with the previous plays he had so far is that he kept those options to potentially hook available to him. Now those are gone, which is fine. But I think for that many points, it's worth it. It's not like he's closed anything off on the right side. He's scoring well and leaving lots of options. He has at least one next turn where he should be able to score something. So I think it's pretty sound.
Agreed. Yeah, it does feel like a lot of the time after this play of decay, the next play for Josh is going to be a solid J play up here, either just the J and the A that he has, or if he can draw something that fits in this spot right there. For example, like the M, which he just drew, that would fit beautifully right up there with jam. Meanwhile, Alec with the first blank. So Alec made a bunch of moves so far. I think the first move left rate, the second move left neat, and the third move left neat. So three good bingo leaves, and at last, one of them maturing into a bingo of untrace. This is a valid word for those of you curious. 82 points. Seems like actually a good choice to me, Jesse, compared to the very similar uncrate in the same spot. And you could see it would have made a huge difference right here. The J on Josh's rack could play for a lot of points going down, but Alex's choice of untrace, that C, preventing those overlaps, could have been so damaging in situations just like this. So nice job. I think it's a good choice by Alec there.
Yeah, there's like always little subtle things you can do. I mean, you're not only thinking about damage control when you're behind, of course, but it's definitely something you can factor in when you. It's the nice thing when you see all the choices. When you have more than one option to go down that scores well, you can start getting really nitpicky. I mean, in both cases, there's the potential for higher counting tiles. You can still do something upward, with the choice of untrace, but without the J, and the Z's of course gone. So yeah, it's like little subtle ways of controlling. You can still score with it, but not giving away a freebie if it's avoidable. So yes, I would agree. It's a very nice choice.
And as expected, no real delay in Josh playing what really feels like his strongest play by a fair margin of jam for 43. So Josh was already ahead, and he's going to be up by even more after that nice play. Alec surely hoping that he could play our beloved QIN up there. That would have been surely his preferred play. He's going to have to pivot to something else. It's always agonizing, Jesse, when you've got that Q and your best play for it gets eaten up by an opponent play. And now, as I'm believing he's going to do, you've got to keep it for next turn. Never a great feeling.
Remember the pre-QI days?
Oh my
Talk about
gosh.
holding on to a queue for a while. I remember how agonizing that was, and just actually how much more often you could get queue stuck. So yes, holding on to it, certainly it's not the most fun, but being able to unload it sooner more often is nice. And okay, there we go. We got okay.
Exactly.
I don't always see this one. Sometimes I still skim over it, and it's been I don't know how long now since it's in there. When you grow up playing without it, it's just so hard to naturally see it.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the case with a bunch of particularly bizarre two-letter words. Okay is kind of a weird one because there's not that many words that sound like that, right? Wouldn't you think if okay should be in the dictionary, it should be pronounced ok, but instead it sounds kind of like an acronym, but we have it. The K is very happy that it's in there. And I guess the nice thing about that play for Alec is it gives him a decent place to dump his Q next turn if he needs it. So there were a couple nice things about that for him. He has Niqab set up here, which he really wants to play right here with Bree as the hook there. That would be fantastic for him. But Josh, who is on turn right now, is going to beat him to the punch. He's drawn a hook for Re in the form of the D, and he has bingos, whichever he chooses between Deliria and Iridial. I think he's very, very likely to play those hooking Re here. In fact, I wonder what he could be thinking about, as I would probably want to have one of those bingos on the board ASAP, Jesse.
Yeah, I think it's probably just thinking about the board development. We know how good both of these players are, that they have fantastic work knowledge on both sides. I know Josh in particular, how much time he puts into studying. So it's most likely just seeing in his mind's eye how the board develops after the options and considering. That would be my guess. It's very unlikely it's related to the word knowledge.
Yeah, definitely agreeing with you there. Just thinking, as you say, Josh is probably thinking, well, I'm going to be up. I'm already up by this much. I'm going to be going up by even more after this play. What is the best way to create a board that allows me to protect my even bigger lead? And Iridial has a lot of things going for it, in the sense that it becomes a little bit more difficult to play an 8-letter bingo, in my opinion, after this, compared to Deliria, where there are more tiles that have a lot more space to work with. Here, maybe that's not so much the case. A lot of the tiles in this part of the board prevent the I and R from being as flexible as they might be further down the board. And Alec is instantly going to play Niqab. So that's just a case of maybe really good thought process on the part of Josh, but a tough outcome, as Alec gets exactly the spot he needs for his 60-point Q play, Jesse. That is a godsend for him.
Yeah, definitely helps him stay very much in this game. And this is one of those ones where I would agree with Josh's play at the end of the day here, as far as the choices. And then you just like, you know what, that's variance. Sometimes when something comes back, it's a nice spot by both players. And one of the things that makes anyone at the top of the game strong is they can shake this off and be like, you know what, I made the right choice. In the moment, the response sucks, to have to deal with 60 points coming right back. But you have to know you made the right choice, shake it off, and look for the next best play again.
Yeah. And you can see Alec is poised to potentially play another bingo through this N of hominies. He has it lined up instantaneously. It's going to be tough for Josh to find a way to block that, given that, in my opinion, some of his best plays are right here with Hooli or Hootie in this spot. Feels like that N is going to stay open, and we are likely to see another bingo for Alex. So fortunes in this game. We're going to try to get those scores updated as soon as possible, but a couple more points per player.
I'm just catching up on the chat now. Sorry, everyone. I wasn't logged into the live stream earlier. I'll be ready to respond to different things in the chat now. I see Akilesh has asked, what is WoW? That is one of the Scrabble lexica that are used in North America. It's the lexicon of choice that's used by the WIGPO organization. And then there is also NWL and there is CSW for the other options that are used in North America.
What could be clearer or simpler to understand? We play with 3, 4, 5 different lexicons. Why is that so difficult for you all to understand? Just teasing, of course. Oh, homilies. Okay, so this makes sense with that L open. I actually hadn't considered that these letters play in exactly the same order through that L, just without opening a triple word score. So I think that's definitely worth the 2-point sacrifice for Alec. To play homilies instead of hominies makes total sense. I hadn't actually seen that, but good on him. He is the one sitting in the chair there playing the game, and he did spot it. So now the game is knotted up again. I really thought Josh was on the verge of jumping out to a nice size lead on not that great of a board, Jesse. But the 60-point Q play and another bingo has Alec right back in the game. And look at that, air eights on the rack. That's the comeback could be continuing for him into a lead here.
Yeah, I think I've been seeing some notes in the chat as well talking about the variance of Collins in particular with respect to options on the board. And this would be a pretty textbook example just with just a few turns ago, just how big the gap was between Alec and Josh's scores. And now it's essentially level and Alec's looking pretty good to use them all up again. Let's see, I'm just looking at Josh's rack here now as well. Yeah, as is mentioned in the chat, untraces and aerates would be the candidate spot at the moment next turn for Alec. And just looking to see for Josh, just what his playing options are here. Matthew Tunnicliffe points out hominies would have given up post-teen as a very nice option.
Yeah, this O down here, not in the right spot to give Josh a bingo back. But yeah, you're mentioning what are Josh's options here. There's one really cool one. Of course, if you're Josh, you would like to use one of your two T's, but you've got a really cool insertion play of just NEP right here, making Rexes. You can put an E in between Rex and the S, scoring 35 points. Yes, you do keep both T's on the rack, but Jesse, I would think that test is actually a pretty darn good leave despite the duplicated T's.
I mean, if you're going to have something doubled, that would be pretty good, given the nature of EST. The chat's also pretty happy about pattern in that sort of same area with NEP. It's pretty nice as far as under overlapping, all that lappy goodness.
Yeah, beautiful. So you can go even further across. You don't have to worry about that double T issue. But again, I actually feel like test might be good enough that you get an extra point for playing NEP, and you might actually get a few more bingos down holding ESTT than just ES plus 5 random tiles. So it's very close. I think there is a good argument to be made for patent, which I had not actually really looked at closely. And that might be the best play. You get more cracks at drawing another S from the bag. So yeah, definitely some things to recommend it there.
All right, for chat. I see Wayne Rooney's mentioned newer Scrabbler here. What determines whether a tournament uses WoW or CSW? What are the biggest differences between them? Do pros prefer one or the other? Oh, that's a landmine set of questions right there. Might have to touch on that with some pause time and delicacy. Diplomacy as we do. But to start with that, just while we're waiting, it looks like Josh is pondering Pat. Okay, no, he's going to write. Okay, we'll come back to your questions there, Wayne. Very likely it's going to be air rates right away, and then we'll just see what Josh picks up, and then perhaps start touching on your question.
Yeah, so pet the eventual play by Josh, really wanting to undouble that T and keep the very strong ENST leave. Makes some sense to me, but that allows air eights to go down, and then Josh drawing no vowels in response. So he is all of a sudden seemed like he was in firm command, as we said, Jesse, but now he is trailing by 55 points with only one vowel. And the O of homilies taunting him again. Not only could he have played post-teen on that previous rack or pa-teens, now he could play Songfest if the O were higher up the board. But that's Scrabble for you. It can be mocking, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, except the location of the mocking racks have changed. It's now on the other side. I see that Matthew Tunnicliffe has pointed out untooled for Alec immediately through the Owen homilies on the next turn. So Yeah, if that comes down, that'd be pretty tough. We're also seeing Josh is using a lot of time. We know that Josh is a very speedy player on a lot of occasions, but here he's had a fair bit to wrestle through in the last couple of turns.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out there's something wrong with the tracking. So the S's here, it's showing 4 unseen S's, but there actually is we have the 1 on the board, 2 on the board, and Josh with the other 2. So this play of EF here is actually a great one. And Alec is going to play untooled. It is actually really interesting, Jesse. There is an argument to be made for slotting that play 1 square down. It would put the D in the triple lane, but that D would obstruct 7-letter bingos ending in S. That's really counterintuitive, but if you're reading FET as any kind of a S setup, I wonder if playing untooled 1 slot down might have some merit here.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting progressive line of thought there. Yeah,
So
just
we see the
counting.
bingo. Yeah, he's gonna play it in this is certainly the more standard spot, scoring 2 extra points, and getting 5 more from Josh's challenge, which I feel like, is there a chance that that might have been a rage challenge, Jesse?
I feel like it was. I mean, I was going to say when you were done, I kind of saw the look on Josh's face after Untooled went down. I feel like he knows that's a word 99% of the time in his mind. That is very likely a frustration challenge, especially given his draw.
Yeah, and not a good draw at all for Josh. FET, he kept something like SSGT and drew another G, the V and an N, not a vowel in sight. And Alec with Vigoro lined up on his rack, which he would probably be thrilled to play right here, dumping as many of those clunky tiles as possible. Maybe he'll come up with some other idea. You can play your V on top of here, but this is a brutal, brutal situation for Josh. And Alec actually has 446 right now. So we're going to work on getting those scores and tracking a little more accurate next round. But yeah, this is a brutal situation for Josh. You mentioned it, I would actually say in general, there are certain things about Scrabble that Josh does very, very fast. See words, come up with definitions. He is actually very unique among tournament players in that he now studies the definitions of the words as well. So it's weird, Jesse, to say that. If you're a more casual fan watching the stream, it might strike you as totally bizarre to think that that would be a rarity within tournament Scrabble to actually know what the definitions of every word you play mean. But Josh is a unicorn in that sense.
Yeah. For the keeping definitions in your head, some will argue that that's a valuable mental space to store more words and to think of more patterns that you can encode a lot more easily if you just stick to the words and nothing but the words. There are some people who will study the part of speech, along with the word, and that's kind of their happy medium where they're like, oh, I don't know what it means, but I know it's a noun, or I know it's a verb, or an adjective or something like that. I never even used to do that. On occasion sometimes now, especially with Collins being Collins, I like to look and at least figure out, okay, this is a word that looks like a noun, but it's actually an adjective, so I don't try to hook an S on it or something like that, right? As I'm sure you can relate to.
Yeah, without question, any Scrabble player that's played at the tournament level long enough can relate to that for sure. And yeah, there's just limited brain space is really what it boils down to. I think the bigger factor, in my opinion, is that for a lot of us as Scrabble players, you kind of start out as a word lover for sure. I feel like we all love cool words and what they mean and etymology and things like that. And I think what happens somewhere along the way as you start playing tournament Scrabble is you realize this game is awesome for its strategic depth and replayability and finding those cool plays over the board of obscure words. And you realize that definitions have nothing to do with any of that stuff. And all you want is that strategic goodness, and knowing more of the words as playing pieces is how you access that. So there's just something I actually would prefer to frame it as Scrabble strategy being so alluring and fun that at some point the definitions are a worthwhile sacrifice to be able to access more of that strategic goodness.
Yeah, there's also been some, I can see some action in the chat talking about the nature of the brain. I can say I was actually studying to be a psychotherapist back in the day. I did not continue along that line. But even then, there was the idea of the brain being a hard drive. I saw that some people put in the chat that was challenged, and actually the research doesn't support the idea of the brain being a hard drive with limited space at all. That actually the infinite capacity of your mind is something that's really amazing there. It's just more efficiency as far as like learning theory is another item entirely, as far as attaching definitions to it, for example, if that helps keep it in. I saw, hi Vanita in the chat. I saw that she mentioned that that helps with retention. I think it can, absolutely. For some people, that might be the best way to go. Some might be just okay with doing just the part of speech. Some might find it just they want to cram in more words and find a pattern like, well, the alphograms are one example of patterns that people use. Or
Yeah.
mnemonics, people use to memorize word sequences. So like there's different ways that people retain information, but the brain is indeed limitless in its capacity, despite what people previously thought. So sorry, that's a long-winded answer. That was part of what I studied for a long time. So I can confirm, no, the brain is not limited as people once thought.
Yeah, that's very well said. Um, it's maybe that puts a little bit more of the onus on us as Scrabble players to unlock that unlimited potential of the brain and maybe try to learn some of those definitions that we leave by the wayside if we can use some of those memory devices to get them in there. But path of least resistance is often the one that we take. As Alec plays Vigoro, that seems like a solid play, blocking off the left side of the board. Other reasonable options for him could have been just playing Vogue up here. Doesn't really block anything to play up there, but it might prevent Josh from making setup plays of his own that open a better tile than the V. So playing Vogue has that nice attribute of the V is next to impossible to play to there. Either way, no real quibble with Vigoro trying to get to the end of the game. And in fact, it draws more tiles if you're Alec to try to get the blank or an S. And he's actually drawn the F, which is a useful tile for him here, Jesse, if he's worried about this S hook, which I think he definitely is after Josh's play of Vats. So drawing that F is going to let him block down there, and he's going to feel great once he does.
Yeah, that pretty much puts this entire board on lock once that is all dealt with. Josh has got to know that if Alec can do anything remotely blocky in the bottom, he will. I mean, you could even, without having the F there, you could play something parallel to the ED and untool downward. But that would be very few points. But if you're really worried about it, Josh has got to know that it's going to be gone in some way next turn. So I think the time here is just thinking, can I do anything that gives me another spot with a remote chance? Although it's got to be low at this point in time. He's at the end of the game. He can take the time here to look to see, is there anything I can do to give myself a chance?
Yeah, always worth dreaming and coming up with magical scenarios. You really are in a position, if you're Josh, where, yeah, your odds of winning aren't great, but there's no reason not to concoct the most fantastical, wild scenario possible. And this is a good idea, in my opinion, because of the word spug. That is a valid word. He sets up his S. Wouldn't necessarily think of spug as a normal word, but because of the validity of that word, this is a very nice way to set your S up aggressively. And if Josh can draw some vowels, He could stand to hit a very big play on the top row, but no such luck. It's been quite a slog for him, Jesse, with respect to
Yeah,
drawing those useful vowels.
it's been a pretty tough go of it for him for sure. I am a fan of that play. I agree with it at the end of the day. I see that Aphilis in the chat has mentioned, if Josh runs out of time, is it a points penalty or the match is lost? It's a good question, because there are other games that have timers where once you hit 0, the game is over. Scrabble is not like that. In Scrabble, regardless of the lexicon you play, ironically, one of the only things that is consistent is that you will lose 10 points for each additional minute beyond 0 that you go to. So as if Josh were to go under 0 at this point in time, then he would lose 10 points if he were to make his last play and finish the game before an additional minute was used, and so on and so forth. So that's just one way that Scrabble is uniquely different, as 0 is not quite 0. It is, but it isn't. 0 just means you start losing 10 points incrementally for each minute.
Yeah, I always find that to be slightly confusing in the sense that, the timer feels like in most other games when it hits 0, that's it, right? The game's over, you've lost, something decisive happens. In Scrabble, it's kind of a more gentle transition into a gradual point penalty that increases over time. That being said, I'm very used to that, Jesse, and I think we already kind of, our brains melt down when the time starts to expire. If it meant you instantly lost the game, that effect would only become more pronounced.
Could only imagine, some of the odd plays. We already see strange plays, but even more odd plays that you would get at the end. How many times would ought, like OT, come up? I don't know how many times I've typed that out on a board
Yes.
online. There are those plays when you get to the end. I see Delph has gone down. I believe that's one of the types of plays we were talking about before that effectively outruns or ends the game just by scoring enough.
Yeah, I like this option, right? Because Alec has the spug hook and the F's hook to worry about, but the base of the board is considerably more threatening due to the terminal S being the last word in a 7-letter word is significantly more common thanks to the way English inflects and conjugates, or however you would say it. So Alec electing to block the bottom makes a ton of sense from him. And without too much time left on his rack, Josh can know with certainty that with only one vowel on his rack and no vowels to really play through for an 8-letter bingo, he can go ahead and play swing at the top of the board. That is by far his best endgame option here. And it is back to Alec. And all that remains for him is to come up with his best endgame play. It looks like he's thinking about playing waiting here to go out. It turns out that you could score a lot more points with our favorite cat sound, meow. You could play that right here. Very nice, Jesse. It scores enough points, apparently, that it is worth playing, even though it would give Josh another turn to play something like Ret or maybe something better that I'm not seeing. You get enough more points for this that it works out slightly better. But again, that works out to literally a 2-point better margin of victory for Alec. And Jesse, I feel like there are times when stamina versus battling for every last point becomes more important.
Yeah, I think playing swing and everything, like you said, it's really just accepting like it's not happening anymore. And you're really just moving on to the next game mentally, keeping in mind that this is a multi-day tournament. It's not even just 2 days or even 2.5 days, as most of our longer tournaments are on long weekends. It's stretches out over 5 calendar days. You got to be able to, in order to do well at these events, put things past quickly. That's also the highs. Like it's easy to coast along and feel happy and in the zone when things are going really well. But then if you're not careful, one bad game can throw you off. So it's really just keeping even keeled, and that's one thing Nigel is excellent at. People were talking about Nigel lurking in the background and walking back and forth. Nigel's just totally even keeled, whether it's a blowout win for him or a loss of any kind. As he said to us many times before, he just enjoys playing, and that's it. And we could all take something from that. As good as we all want to be, and as close to perfect as we all want to be, he's just like, yep. He doesn't care. He says he literally doesn't care. He just plays for fun.
I really believe it in his case. As we know from other pastimes, not to throw shade on any content creators in other mind sports, Hikaru,
Ooh.
when we say, I literally don't even care, sometimes we actually do care.
Mm-hmm.
But in Nigel's case, I actually believe it. There's a lot of evidence that he really just likes to play and doesn't really mind the outcome that much. I think maybe the strongest piece of evidence beyond just his behavior and his affect, where people have said they literally cannot tell whether he's won and lost. I think for me, the biggest thing is that he never tries to play phonies. He's not doing little tricks and stuff to try to win every last game. He only seems concerned with playing beautiful, flawless Scrabble. If you really cared about winning above all else, I think he might try to play some phonies. I think he might mix it up and do some exploitative plays in the end game, but he never does that. I just don't think it's a priority for him.
It's not. I mean, I know that you probably remember the infamous SOS play that he did for 3 points once. Way back when he was very clearly losing, as a little shout out to the annotators at the time. So if anything, the only time he's really intentionally deviated, from strategic play and thinking has been in the art of humor, with SOS, as he was getting his butt kicked in that one particular game.
Yeah, that was a hilarious situation. And if memory serves, it was in a match play format where point spread was not as important, I think. So that would have enabled him to have a little fun like that without any real repercussion for his tournament standing. So yeah, we all have our limits of the gags and things that we want to do. But Nigel actually is actually very funny. He's made a few comments just adjacent to me at tournaments, just off the cuff remarks where I've laughed my ass off in response to them, including NASPA president Chris Cree ordering him to get a new score sheet, and Nigel starting to swing his arms like a tin soldier and say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You want, sir. Couldn't believe that. So, yeah. All right. So post-mortem here, I'm not sure. There's still, Josh Castellano definitely won to go over the game. I guess we'll listen in.
W
A or E?
A or E is good, because then I have
Tongs
songs,
doing
times, right? Times.
Yeah, tongs is good.
Time, wasting, like it's 4.
Yeah.
Times is good, right? Yeah, the process
Yes.
is like, yeah.
And if you have E, you get twinges there. And you draw I, you get so much.
You have the F, so wait, what if can I draw like? Isn't there a way I can draw F?
Like I still like you go here, and
Yeah.
I calculated that I outrun.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, okay, yeah, surely you calculated it if you played something. Okay, it would have been closer. It would not have been. Cool. Is there some crazy like? No, there's no way. Like, what if I draw FW? But then I just never have bingos. Maybe this would win because I have all the power tiles, but I don't. There's no bingo here. I need like another vowel to make it work.
I would need an I to play Isled.
Ooh.
And even then, that might not outrun the big stuff there.
Well, I mean, like what big stuff with
It probably does.
So if I draw like this, what if
It's a
like
lot closer.
FW is in the bag? Are you screwed here? I guess you play Isle, right?
Let's see, Dealgren doesn't fit.
Oh shit.
I'm ahead by 91 at this point.
It should be enough. You also don't have to empty the bag. You could just play one. Like, just drop the eye here. Yeah, you probably figure this out.
Yeah, this would be 21. I would be up by 112. I would draw that. So I really feel like I'm up by 90. And so you need to score 90 to tie.
Is that enough?
That is 91.
So probably Isle no good. But I think like you just play this, right?
Jighere just kept a D.
You just played this. Is this the best spot for like an eye?
So that's 12.
It's pretty good. I mean, I guess the problem is I can just counterfish. But, well, okay, then it gets like really complicated. Well, I probably need the W to triple.
So suppose I draw the other W.
I don't want to play this. I want 3 extra for the W, not 2 extra. Like what? Now what am I doing?
If I draw the other W, it's hard to block down here. But if you draw the F after fishing off the W, then what do you have?
I don't think I have anything.
Is Saft an adjective?
Yes. I feel, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Surely you have like something here. Okay. Yeah, I guess some of them get really sweaty. Wait.
Oh, that does that too.
8.
Don't
Oh
put
wait, no.
an
I'm at the D here. 8. Something 8. W. Huh. Seems just really close to a bunch of stuff. But doesn't seem like I can pull this one out.
Given I have the F, yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay. It seems like I need an extremely
Yeah,
specific sequence.
Yeah, Delph kept raw. So, was it raw? No, it was gnaw. It was gnaw.
All right, maybe let's bring it back up into the booth as these two go into a remarkably deep post-game post-mortem, Jesse. I think maybe the biggest thing as the players debating how realistic Josh's winning chances were after Pug is I actually wasn't realizing the bingo lane here with rail hooks is kind of a fun lifeline to have on the board. I wasn't focused on that very much. So that's a factor I didn't consider that seemingly, I'm not sure if Josh or Alec did during the game, but they just realized it there.
Yeah, I think I wasn't even looking there so much either, especially just with, well, in this case, there was 2 Gs. There was also the P, you know, and just how immediately it assisted his rack while creating a hook for ing bingos. But yeah, I wasn't really thinking about that lane so much. Thinking, especially because of the G and it not going to be making an ing play if you were to use it in the H vertical lane there, ending in E. G is not necessarily a bingo killer in the same way that a V is in most cases, but certainly can make things difficult if it's not at the end, as it most often is. Yeah, wasn't really looking in that spot. I'm not sure what the percentage would be on pulling something out there, but it seemed like they were agreeing that it didn't seem super likely, and if it was there, that it would have to be a very specific sequence, using Josh's own words.
Yeah, agreed. That's I think he hit on it there. But when you get down to those single digit or sub 1% winning chances, there are some times where you have to fixate on those incredibly specific sequences that might somehow deliver you the win. And every so often on stream, we get to see one of those become reality, and it's pretty magical when that happens. So in any case, that does it for our first round of the day. A matchup where Josh got off to a fast start, but then Alec just barraged with some bingos and some very nice strategic plays to come up with a much needed win. pulling Josh Castellano back to the pack just a little bit. And when we look at the standings, the player who currently stands the most to benefit from that loss by Josh is none other than our former World Scrabble champion, Wellington Jighere, Jesse. And we're going to be watching him in the very next round.
What a treat. I think I saw he was playing Austinho, Austin Shin, on the board next. So that should be nice and fun. I still call him Austinho, just because for those who don't know, he uses that as one of his usernames when he's played online. So I believe that's in the next 5-10 minutes. Or are we going for a quick little coffee break here?
Yeah, so we will cut to the quickest little break. Knowing Wellington, he's probably done with his game already or close to it. So these players also finishing quickly. It should not be very long until we get that next matchup between Austin and Wellington. Two players that need not that much introduction. If you've watched a lot of streams before, you've heard those two names. You've seen amazing plays by both. So let's cut to the quickest little break. We'll be right back with Austin versus Wellington from the 2025 World Cup. All right, folks, we're back. Players are set. Will here and Jesse alongside me once again. We just saw Alec and Josh do battle, and we have a similarly titanic matchup coming at us right here. Jesse, I'm very excited. It does look like we have the names reversed. There we go. That was, wow, couldn't even say it, and it got fixed. So Austin with the first move, and Jesse, he's got a mantra that he plays Scrabble by and lives by, seemingly.
Scoring never stops. Welcome back, everybody. It's been so long since I've been on a stream, but I'm used to doing the intro. So I was about to do it, and I was like, Bill just did it. He literally just did it. I'm not running the show.
We can let you do it next time.
No.
You're very good at it. So I feel like that would be fun if you want to take it next time. I apologize.
Oh no, it is your stream, William. I could never possibly take that away from you.
It's all good. Either way, it's going to go smooth as can be. And Austin with a tough rack here. He plays Ducks and Wellington with Woorali on his rack. So in for some fireworks in the early going. I was wondering about Fung. That would have been kind of crazy to see Austin play Fung, a reasonable choice using one more consonant, but then the fungi hook would have made Wellington's life even easier here. So a choice that, oh no, but look at this draw for Austin, Jesse. I was going to say benefits Austin to get a triple to work with, but this is just going to be another trolling situation.
Yeah, he's not gonna be too pleased here.
Oh, he has the E. Never mind. I thought for some reason I thought it was all consonants. But that E, something about the way he was holding that tile, the E makes a world of difference. Sorry, Jesse.
Yeah, well, F is probably going to go down beneath Woorali, I would imagine, pretty quickly here.
Yeah, turning what I thought was a brutal, horrible situation into a 52-point play, leaving the somewhat synergistic CGNR. If you can draw an I and some other vowels to that, all of a sudden you're in pretty good shape. So that lone vowel making a world of difference. And that is why sometimes when you see players exchange tiles at this level, they might try to keep one vowel and one consonant. If they, have one of those really lopsided racks, you wouldn't throw away all your tiles just to make sure that you don't run into that worst case scenario of all 7 of your tiles being either consonants or vowels. Makes a huge difference, as we're about to see. No chance Austin's going to miss this for 52 smackaroos here, Jesse.
Yeah, there's not much else to be done. That could score nearly as well. You're not going to give up that many points to have a slightly better balanced rack. There's nothing that's really worth it besides that. I would probably play it too quickly to my detriment and miss something else if there were, but in this case, I think it is really the only play that's reasonable.
Yep, down it goes without too much time wasted, and not too many vowels. He gets another one, does Austin. Wellington probably hoping against hope, but knowing how unlikely it would be for this W to stay open. He would have loved to play weakly off of this W. But of course, you know that the board is, if you have an appealing play in a certain spot, the odds are pretty good it's appealing to your opponent as well, Jesse. I feel like I hear that a lot among all Scrabble players, no matter their experience level of "you took my spot." It's kind of the Scrabble. You hear it all the time, but if it was something you wanted to play, the spot you wanted to use, your opponent might like it too.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting, I don't want to say I'm thinking the brain sort of thing going on here. Because in chess, I have not played in tournaments in chess, but I feel like in chess, no one's going to say you took my spot. When one piece moves, the next person responds. The whole point of a chessboard is that it's dynamic. But for some reason in Scrabble, people feel like you took my spot, when someone goes there. But it's like an RPG almost. You take a turn, then they take a turn, but in our lore, in our version of the RPG, it's like someone took my spot. I'm just looking at the chat to see if I've missed anything here before we go. Peaky, that's a nice little play there. Colin's Scrabble word is answered. Hello. I see some people there giving us some hellos and shout outs. Mr. Lucas Freeman. It's in a hot minute or 10. Nice to see your name in there. Let's see. Pikelet. Would that have been good as in a crumpet or a tea cake? That's a playful, fun question, Lee. You've got the star there. He's got the star there. So I think he knows the answer.
Good thought. That would be an ambitious try, but not valid, as Wellington settles for what I think is very normal peaky. That got rid of all of his high scoring tiles at once, leaving him his more bingo prone letters. And as it turns out, he is now threatening the slightly obscure, but at this level, you're going to see it every time, 7-letter bingo of lay tear. I'm sure I'm butchering that pronunciation, but at the very least, it plays off of id on the board. So if Austin does not find a way to block that spot, we're going to see Wellington bingoing a second time. Woorali and lay tear. What could be more obvious, Jesse, than those two words?
But of course. This particular word happens to come from Latin. If it's the same definition as, I don't know, sometimes there's some funny ones when you look in Ziziva to see what things mean. So it might mean something else, but the way I've seen it outside of Scrabble is that it has to do with Lent, I believe it is, to describe a particular Sunday.
Nice.
That one's for Vanita, in particular for Vanita, since she loves her definitions. Perhaps you can verify for me, Vanita, if it's your same understanding, since you love those definitions.
Nice. And oh, look at that. Clang. Okay, so that looks like it might be the block that Austin needed to find. Of course, that is entirely our commentator voice talking. We can see all the options that the opponent has. Austin has no such luxury, but a very reasonable play for him could have been something like Narc here, which would have left the sevens lane open for Wellington. But very savvy and timely play there by Austin. Although this play, there might be occasions where Austin would regret doing this. Maybe if Wellington has a huge play through the G, you would say to yourself, oh no, why didn't I play Narc? So it's hard to have that mode of thinking here. And you can see Wellington lamenting, there it is, the 7-letter word spelled out on his rack. He is going to have to call an audible here, Jesse, to something less satisfying. So whatever that is very likely to use a relatively lower number of tiles here, because you can take heart if you're Wellington. You've still got really good bingo tiles, the exception of the duplicated A's, and maybe you could throw the E's in there as well. So I'm thinking Wellington would love to use an A and an E. Maybe a nice way to do that would just be playing YAE right here. You even set up your R for cider going across with a play like that. That seems okay to me. Not the most electrifying play in the history of Scrabble, but maybe called for.
Electrifying. That just made me think of WCW or just wrestling entertainment in general. Electrifying! I'm just thinking of like Jerry the King and all them going back and forth. Can you imagine if we called a Scrabble game like that?
We need him casting Scrabble. Yeah, I mean, we definitely need the wrestling guys getting in here. Oh my God, it's Woorali from the upper corner with this the steel chair. That would be pretty cool. Maybe we should try, test drive one or two games like that in the absolute craziest, most hype way. The problem is that Scrabble has these kind of pauses where players are thinking that might be a little tougher to announce in that style. But I'm game for it, Jesse.
You can imagine if they're pondering their moves and one of us is saying like, he's thinking about the exchange. And I'm like, oh, he can't do this, Jay. It's not the same.
Yeah, so there's, I think it's appropriate to get hyped when the situation calls for it, as Wellington plays Lee, L-E-A. I think this makes some sense to me. The play of Y-A-E here would certainly be a good one, leaving one extra good bingo tile, but I don't think the board is necessarily that great for actually playing bingos here. So Wellington taking a little bit more of a defensive approach, grabbing an extra point, And it does not stop Austin at all from potentially playing the word he already wanted to play in that spot, Jesse.
Yeah. I have a hard time finding any fault with the play. I mean, it's pretty natural with keeping, a really strong set of letters at the end there. It didn't do him any favors necessarily to open the board up, but at the same time, doesn't really do anything to obviously give the opponent back anything. So yeah, I don't mind it. Austin going with a pretty strong play here right away. That does have the effect of subtle. I wouldn't say subtle opening. Like, I mean, like the board's clearly open. It's just like there's nothing obvious where there's points immediately being given back. You have to reach pretty far in either direction to score really well on this turn. And at this level, we expect players to score more or less high 20s, low 30s on average. And the nice thing with Phenol is that it scores well and it doesn't really give anything more than you would expect on average for players at this level. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, it really, it's, as you say, pretty much the only way you're getting points off of that play is with something long and probably a bingo. So I guess my only concern if I'm Austin, and this, let me be clear, definitely would not dissuade me from playing Phenol, is that after Wellington's previous play of just LEA for 16, I'm thinking to myself, man, he probably has 4 other good low point bingo tiles to be making a play like this. So by playing Phenol, I'm putting the P out in space. You could get hit with something here. The E, certainly a very, very good tile to play 8-letter words. I'd be expecting some of the time to be giving Wellington a bingo back that he might not have otherwise. But in the cases where he doesn't have a bingo, totally agree with you, Jesse. Very difficult to do much off of the letters of Phenol that you're that worried about. And as it turns out, Austin is the one threatening Partyist, one of our very goofy comparative, or I guess superlative adjectives. So hard to see how Wellington's going to find a way to block that one.
The most abounding in parties, the Partyist.
That accent is appropriate, I think, for one who would ever say such a word as Partyist. But yeah, I mean, I feel like from Wellington's perspective, something like emit looks solid if you just want to score a bunch of points. And if you want to really lean into your very good bingo leave, you could play fewer tiles and adjust that play a little bit. Would you ever consider something like just oft here? I feel like I would play emit every time.
It's pretty tough to turn down emit in this position, just given how much it scores. Whenever I'm in doubt, I mean, and this might just be to a fault for me again, points. Like synergy is nice. Certainly we want to balance as well as possible, but if you're in just say 2 turns, for example, giving up almost a bingo's worth of bonus points, then what was the point really? It's so when I'm in doubt, I kind of lean towards the points if everything else is otherwise more or less equal.
Very good sort of rule of thumb to follow. Of course, the thing about rules of thumb in Scrabble is that, as I often say on the stream, you can break any rule of Scrabble for the right price. And I also say things like, I would do a lot of things for 90 Scrabble points and things of that nature. So Austin playing for 83, his best bingo at the top of the board. So he's going to seize command of the game right here in short order. And Wellington with his RAT leave, this becomes kind of an important draw. Again, though, he does have this E of Phenol that's going to give him a lot of 8-letter bingos with a balanced draw, Jesse. I'm excited to see what he picks. Oh, that'll work.
Yeah, I think he's not going to be too unhappy with the different options. It would be a travesty if he didn't find a really good one here.
Jesse on his game. He hasn't been in the booth as much for Scrabble streams in recent years, but that was a fantastic comment by him. Travesty with a blank Y, his best bingo here off of the T. I'm guessing that Wellington is going to find that one. Not only does that score 92 points, the most that he can get here, doesn't really give any good scoring spots back or great opportunities back to Austin. And as you can see, Austin's tiles not very good after his own bingo. So that's going to give Wellington a chance to really solidify his grip on this game again if he were to draw something very good out of the bag. He's currently down by 73, but 92 on offer. Looks like he's thinking about veterans, though, Jesse. Maybe let's hope he's not too hasty. Of course, he's going to be looking at this E, but 80 points on offer for veterans, 92 for travesty. So it would be a significant upgrade.
Yeah, and I think to be completely fair, Y is not the most natural choice, you know, when you're looking for something to make the blank as you shuffle through things in your brain. But of course, Wellington is very, very capable and should find that, I think, in relatively short order. But then, yeah, it's tempting not to jump right away. But I think he'll do the right thing and look a little bit longer.
Well,
maybe not.
As each letter hits the board here.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it seems like it's escaping his notice, which is unfortunate. I think he would be the first to say that he would play travesty here, almost certainly. I guess I don't think there's any real board positional benefit to this necessarily. It is fair to say that after travesty, maybe you give up some 7-letter bingos that don't otherwise fit on the board. But yeah, I think I'm playing for the extra 12 points here, and Wellington going to leave a little bit on the table, but he's still in very good position here as Austin drawing 2 U's, 2 O's, and a Y, not the letters we like to see, Jesse.
Yeah, a little bit of clunky town over here for Austin.
Is he really looking at just playing something like YO here for 30? That is incredibly uninspiring, but is it possible that that could be the best play for him?
Yeah, I was just looking briefly at the clangy options, but none of those score enough to be worth it. Even, yeah, they're all pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, just playing. Well, wait, is clangy? Clangy. I'm actually feeling like that might be a really good non-word. It struck me weird when you said it, but yeah, that could easily get played. Is clangy? It's not showing up on my word list. So yeah, that would be.
Oh wait, glycan. Never mind. Glycan.
Yeah, I'm sure I see clangy every time I see those letters in study. So Austin not taking the bait, and he is playing yo for 30 points, Jesse. It's better than exchanging to get 30 points. Maybe he'll get the Q to save him. There's definitely things that can happen. If he were to get the Q, he would have a really good Q play of Queen O. Oh my God, there it is. Commentator powers. Oh, wait a second. This is crazy. Oh, Wellington just spelled this word wrong. Oh, no. So this is a newly added word. I actually featured it in one of my videos about one of the fun new words. You actually can spell this word bijou with AI, but Wellington has inverted it as biajou. So that's going to come off a huge swing. Too much action, Jesse. Too much just happened there.
He can't do this, JR. There we go. We go back to the WWE here. It's like, indeed, he cannot. Off it comes from the board. And now what is he going to do? There we go. We have some of our hottest action this morning.
That's
phony.
Crazy.
Oh, no.
So the phony coming off the board, 37 points on offer for Wellington there with the correct spelling of BAIJIU. Instead, he inverts those letters and has to pass his turn with a 0 as Austin instantly challenges. And I was just saying that Austin's leave of the 2 U's, you're going to play yo from that rack, and maybe every so often you draw the Q and it saves you completely. And that's exactly what happens. 52 points on offer for him here. This gives Wellington another chance to play the correct spelling of this word too, Jesse. But is he going to be gun shy about it? No, he's going to go right back. He realizes his mistake, but this does give Austin time to potentially draw an S, which would be devastating to Hook.
Mm.
Oh my God. So much going on here. No S for Austin, but he draws more goodies and he's going to hit the Q again for
Wow.
another 50 points. Incredible.
The scoring has not stopped. It unfortunately briefly did for Wellington, but on Austin's side, it has not stopped. He's doing very, very well.
Yeah, we just have to see. I think at this point, with Austin now moving up to 349 on the scoreboard, things have really taken a turn here, where we thought that it was going to be a nice, even game. Potentially, Wellington able to draw something after veterans that would allow him to take control. Instead, Austin getting the cue that saves him completely, and a phony by Wellington definitely changing the trajectory of this game completely. So yeah, Wellington now with not very good tiles. In fact, no playable bingo, no good way to score, and Austin holding one of those valuable S's. So things really turned on a dime in this game, Jesse.
Yeah, quite the swing, and a testament to Austin as well, as far as on, well, the term where he played Yo, just how bad that rack was, with the multiple U's and vowels, and just a testament to him. Certainly good turn of fortune with gaining that free turn, but really well done playing through the junk, quite frankly, and building up a nice lead, and now a very lovely 7-letter word on his rack. Nicer letters. He's looking pretty comfortable here.
Yeah, not sure if Dooley's actually fits, but that's
He's holding
fine.
much better than he was 3 turns ago.
He surely is. Yeah. So even if there's no spot for the 7-letter bingo, you can do a lot here with that S, right? You're just cashing it here for 40-ish points a lot of the time. Maybe not quite, but in the high 30s, blocking the board. It looks like Austin is thinking about playing just DOOS and Bijou's right here. That seems fine. You could get more points by playing across with something like siloed or soloed. But those plays maybe needlessly opening more space on the board to Wellington to bingo. So that seems very reasonable for Austin to play it a little bit safer. It looks like Wellington is considering just playing GAT alongside Queen-O, keeping the pretty good, pretty balanced IACR. I'm trying to alphabetize that in my head, Jesse, but for some reason I'm struggling. But good bingo lead for him.
Cigarette. I like to make fun invented words when looking at some people's tiles sometimes.
Yeah, cigarette with 2 A's. I'm sure we have at some point somebody has spelled that word wrong, but not enough to make it into the dictionary. Just kind of funny how that happens sometimes when misspellings actually make it in through overuse. Gets to that issue of should dictionaries be descriptive or prescriptive? Modeling language, how it quote unquote should be or how it is. That's an interesting discussion. One that the definition unconcerned Scrabble players may not take part in as much as you would expect.
Where there's the perspective of words are just words, and that's how they would see it. It's really interesting. When I think about whelm, for example, just the history of that word and where overwhelm came to being, and underwhelm never actually used to be a word, but then it eventually came in a more figurative sense, whereas whelm and overwhelm were more literally waves engulfing a ship, but underwhelm was more or less always metaphoric in nature. So it's fascinating discussion when you get into the itty-bitty of language.
That is really cool regarding the etymology of whelm. That makes a ton of sense. And I wonder about other words like gruntle as well, where I just feel like I never see that word by its lonesome. I only see disgruntle, and maybe somebody figured that somehow the opposite of that is gruntle. So there's a bunch of words of that nature, but when you have when you have the letters WHELM on your rack or GRUNTLE, you're going to be happy that somebody has been misusing those words for a long time.
Yeah, I think I remember reading a story about some of this recently, and uh, it was I'm assuming a Gen Z person writing or someone similar, but talking about gruntle being like an early 1900s meme, more or less, that it was never meant to be used as a serious word when it was seen in any communication, and that it died out in use over the time with disgruntle staying. Whereas whelm, this is kind of why I know a little bit about whelm. uh, Whelm kind of transformed over time, and there was actual not ironic use of the terms like overwhelmed and
Hmm,
underwhelmed. So yeah,
interesting.
but gruntle, I was actually just looking it up for fun in Ziziva, and it doesn't necessarily have the opposite definition to disgruntle.
Oh,
um,
okay. Well, there you go.
Gruntle is showing as a verb entirely differently, involving moaning and groaning. Um, in
So
at least,
grunting, it's a
yeah,
variation of grunting. I see. Did not
maybe it's like a
realize.
little grunt, a gruntle.
Yes, exactly.
That's like maybe
Yeah.
gruntlet is around there somewhere. No. No.
Diminutive grunt. Yeah. So yeah, Austin in commanding position as we look. He's giving us some time to go into some fun discussions about different words and dictionary sort of um, attitudes that we might have when building those. But he seems to be. I thought he was considering playing loosed to start this turn, which I feel like I like a little bit better than if he's going to play soiled in the same spot. It just feels way more difficult to get a 7-letter word down if you're Wellington after loosed, as opposed to playing a little bit further across the board. This feels like not only do you still get all the bingos that start with almost every vowel, but you also get some that start with a consonant and a vowel in that word form. So I might be playing loosed here over soiled, especially Jesse, with only one eye to come from Austin's perspective. But soiled is the play. Can't really quibble with it super much. And he is in commanding position here.
Yeah, I would say pretty comfortably controlling here after that play. Someone in the chat has mentioned gruntle in NWL is defined as put into good humor. So then, yeah, that in that case, with that dictionary's definition, that would be the opposite. That's cool. I have the CSW 24 dictionary open where it just defines it as a verb, grunting or groaning. And there we go. Inconsistency that we sometimes have with the definitions amongst lexica.
Yeah, which is always a little bit bizarre and or maddening for those that are trying to learn that stuff or keep it straight. And it seemed like Wellington might be about to give a try to varicide. At least he has it spelled out. But as he so often does, Wellington is very to watch him as a commentator is very entertaining, Jesse, because he's almost kind of throwing you off the scent as well as he's throwing his opponents off the scent with what he's planning on doing a lot of the time. He'll set tiles up and then go a completely different direction. Whereas other players, Nigel included, and even Alec in the last game, they pretty much instantly put their tiles in order based on their best plan that they can spot for the next turn.
And then I remember looking at little details like this early on in my Scrabble career, just watching how people would put tiles down. For some of them, they change the speed or, I remember it used to annoy me to no end, and it was not rational when people would, for a bingo, just pick up their rack and then just go and just dump it, on the board all in one go. And then, especially when it would just all the tiles would very perfectly slide into the spots on the board. I don't know why. It just irrationally pissed me off to no end. And then there were other people who would just like one by one by one put their tiles down, but at different speeds sometimes, where it's like if it's a play they didn't like, and it was just almost like they'd slam it into the spot on the board each time as they hated it.
Yes, yes.
But then there's the people who would just like so excitedly, just like very quickly, dish it down onto the board as if they're dishing out pain to you, literally. These little things
Yeah.
we look at when we're just not liking what's on our side of the board. And it's like, yeah, tilt. Definition of tilt, but I digress.
Yeah, there's so many little stylistic things that people play Scrabble very differently, handle the tiles differently. A lot of people alphabetize every single rack. All that sort of thing is kind of fun to start paying attention to when you look at it more critically. But yeah, Austin in very good position in this game, especially because of Wellington's draw, Jesse. That is a very brutal set of letters that he's dealing with right now.
Yeah, too much of what would normally be a good thing if you have a few less of each of those.
Right.
But definitely way too much of the end now. I see that there's been some suggestions for showbiz for Austin on his turn there with a blank H down through the I in advice. That's excellent play. Scores
Yeah,
very nicely.
that's fun. Another idea, though, too, Jesse, is with the last S on Austin's rack. I think the highest scoring play Austin can make here is probably just Swizz for 52, unless, as you say, he wants to burn his blank and play Showbiz, which would be fun. But a really cool idea could be just playing Whiz for a much lower
Ooh.
score. Would that ever be worth doing? Because you're just making an absolutely brutal situation. And there we go. There it is. What a
Yes.
fun play by Austin, setting up his S and blank in a way that is extremely annoying. Yeah, you are kind of telling Wellington flat out, hey, I've got the S. This is like a neon flashing sign. I have the S and blank. I would never do this if not for that. But I think it's fun. Creates an annoying situation for him to deal with.
I think he's got to play something like wreck here right away, just to take that away. The issue here, of course, is that if you're saying you have the S, you're also thinking about advices, whatever could go there quite clearly. So maybe it's not necessarily straightforward, but I would think at the end of the day, you just have to force him to have a bingo, really, or anything that would hook on advice, whereas just insert standard extremely high scoring play with any number of letters on Wiz. I think you just have to play something like Rec.
Yeah, agree. The bingo is the bingo. When you have a 7-letter play with your S as a terminal letter, it's going to fit in either spot, and it's very difficult for Wellington to do anything about that thanks to the C of advice. You can't really do, and the V of advice, I should add. You can't really do overlaps that address both. So at least you're taking away the shorter scoring plays with Swizz with this block by Wellington. We have a classic out of context Scrabble moment, which I see a lot of us in the chat were saying Austin has boogers. One of our favorite things about Scrabble is you find yourself saying things that you didn't quite intend at first. And when you remove the Scrabble context from it, it sounds a little bit goofy. So Austin with... Just to be clear, I have no reason to suspect anything other than sterling nasal hygiene from Austin, but he is potentially, and this is true commitment to good Scrabble here, rather than just playing boogers for 90. Oh, he is going to play boogers. I thought he was about to play a different variant of this that avoided putting the blank on the double letter score. There were a couple options like burgoos that would have gotten the job done in that regard, but 3 points fewer, no big deal. Austin's still way out ahead now in this game. Boogers for 90, creating just a very academic endgame. Nice play here, though, by Wellington. Look at the points that he's managed to wring out of his weird low point 3N rack, Jesse.
Yeah. He's probably just, in this case, understanding that the game's decided, so it's really just preservation at this point and scoring well doing that. Why not, especially with the 3 ends, he's got to know what's done. And like we were saying before, you sometimes just have to know when it's done and move on to the next game mentally and keep your focus. So.
Yeah, Wellington actually going into this game, as we see, it looks like Wellington already on the phone as the game is continuing. That might not be necessarily the rule approved approach, to just know that your opponent has an M and just hop on the phone and start looking at stuff. It's ultimately, it's no big deal, as the final score here is going to be Austin 519, Wellington 364. Wellington was in first place heading into this game, with Austin in sixth. So this is a big win for Austin to pop up one game closer to Wellington. And things are really knotted up at the very, very top of the standings. Going into this game, Wellington and Josh Castellano at 15 wins. Dave Wiegand, Alex Seaholm, and David Whitley at 14, and then Austin right behind at 13. So this is a big win, not only for Austin, but for the other players looking to leapfrog Wellington in the standings. And yeah, not sure if we'll get any post-mortem. Maybe we listen in now.
So that was really, I love the game.
Yeah, I had to look at it twice.
As you can see, we
Yeah.
I need to run away from it and play Baju, but I guess I should have run away. Immediately I had the doubts, I should have run away. Yes. Play Baju. But I didn't like CII.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay.
What? Let me just make sure. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
All right, so there you go. Wellington saying, "This is where I lost the game," about his tile transposition. Unfortunately, that was indeed a pretty big swing in the game, as at the time that he made that play, had he made the correct play, Jesse, he would have gone up by 15 or more points and had a chance to maybe pull some good stuff from the bag, including the S's or the blanks, which took a while to come out. So no, there's no guarantee that Wellington playing Baiju with the correct spelling would have led to a better outcome, but there's definitely a chance that maybe he gets an S, can hook it, draw a blank, continue on. Taking a 0 there was indeed a big deal.
Yeah, that was the big swing there. I think Travesty was the other one where positionally it would have been very different if that had come down, but the game wasn't necessarily lost at that point yet. Chinese alcohol, apparently, that's the swing on this one. Not that either of us ever drink anything like that, William. So that would just be one where I'd only know it from the study list, and that's it. I saw some people talking about the taste. That's apparently a bit more like vodka.
Yeah, I think I remember when I saw this word come into the dictionary, you just see all those vowels and the J, and you think to yourself, all right, this is one I better learn quickly, because when I have those letters, it's going to be the best play a huge percentage of the time, and it's going to turn a lot of really difficult racks into a very easy solution if you happen to know that word. So to your point, not a drinker over here, but plenty of alcoholic themed words are in our arsenals as Scrabble players. And I appreciate all of you that do drink and enjoy that stuff. So I get to play things like Baiju. In fact, I have a story of way before the word mojito was added to the Scrabble dictionary. I actually played that word against a 13 or 14-year-old Mac Meller in a training session at his house, thinking to myself, well, this has to be good, right? I've heard about mojito, and he wasted about 1/10 of a second challenging my play off the board. So yeah, tough to use logic sometimes with those beverages and what should be good and shouldn't. But yeah, tough one for Wellington here. But he's still in very, very good shape with 15 wins. He drops to 8 losses, but he has plenty of time to win a bunch more games and potentially wind up in his not that unfamiliar place, Jesse, at the top of the standings.
Yeah, very tightly packed. It's looking like at the top of CSW right now. I've seen in the chat that apparently Nigel has his second loss, that he lost to Cooper Komatsu, I believe by 80 points, someone was saying. So yeah, Nigel's only only a million games out of reach as opposed to a bajillion. Probably still has a massive spread all the same. But yeah, a little more tightly packed on the CSW side. Nothing nearly decided over here by any means. Not that it's over in NWL either, but you know, a little bit more likely that one's decided. So who do we have up next?
So it looks like next game on stream here in round 24 is currently slated to be our defending champion of this event, fellow Nigerian player Eda Karo, against none other than the esteemed Dr. Bing, Dave Wiegand, who is always a treat to watch. Those are two of the top seeds in the entire field. And definitely going to be very excited to see those two do battle on the stream next. Dave, very much in the thick of things at the very, very top of the standings. He, depending on the results from some of the other games, it's possible that Dave might be in first place heading into our next game. As you say, Jesse, it is a bit of a carousel, revolving door, whatever your metaphor that you want to choose. At the top of Collins right now, it feels like it's been a different player at the top of the standings every time I've checked for the last few hours. So maybe that player is going to be Dave Wiegand in top position, looking to defend his stance there from the previous year's champion, Eda Karo, who won in commanding fashion last year and is one of the top players from Nigeria. So definitely looking forward to that one. And how's it feeling to be back in the booth? It's been a real treat to call these two games with you. We got another one coming up. How are you feeling?
I'm loving it. You know, it's kind of a simultaneous bit of, it's been a very long time, and it's like it never stopped. Kind of like Austin's scoring. That's just, I guess, unfortunate that a lot of the mainstays of Scrabble are still in the scene, you know, and when you have enough time, having been to tournaments with a lot of these people, either as a commentator or while playing, and in my case, trying not to get my butt kicked too often by all of these lovely players, it gets a little bit easier when you have some anecdota to talk about, you know, in between turns. I am just catching up on the chat here because I wasn't checking for a few minutes there. Sorry, y'all. Little discussion about Pinion, apparently, and trying to work some lexicography discussions. We can perhaps touch on that in a bit, but no, there's a very long process that figures out frequency of use, and across multiple texts usually are the two major criteria in terms of what ends up making it into whatever word list is used, be it NWL, WoW, or CSW. There's just a few more sources that are considered for CSW, and that's just why there's more words there. Let's just see what else we have. Oh, why thank you. A comment on my jawline, apparently.
Your jawline is looking fantastic right now, Jesse, I have to say. As always, I mean, that's always been a constant. But I mean, as Scrabble players, we often get sort of anger from more casual players of like, why is this a word? Why is that a word? And they're angry at us as the players. And I guess we have had some input into it, but usually we're just relying on other work that's been done by lexicographers. So we're looking at other dictionaries that are established, and if they put za in there, then we're going to use it too. So it's not like we made that word up out of the ether, or chi, or any of the other words, or OE, the wind off of the Faroe Islands. I definitely feel like, as I have some YouTube video about this topic where I jokingly do a montage of the angry comments that I've received about Scrabble dictionary words as they sort of fly onto the screen and overwhelm me slowly. And I understand it. The dictionary has a lot of strange stuff in it, especially Collins has some archaisms in it that we might not have seen in modern English, but it's all about what source dictionaries we use to draw from. So please try not to blame us. We're just doing our best to come up with a list of words that is set in stone beforehand that we know we can either play or not play. I guess that's the best way I would put it, Jesse.
Yeah, and we also have some fun. You were talking about older words. It was making me think. Will got to meet my boyfriend about a month ago at a wedding for a Scrabble player, and I was telling my boyfriend about some of the Spencerian words that we have in Collins. And for those of you who don't know, there's a particular past participle that is used in some of the Spencerian words that have made it into the Collins dictionary in particular, and it usually involves putting a Y in front of
that front hook. Yes, we love it.
And then there'll often be a T at the end instead of ed. So my boyfriend is now aware that if I am saying something that sounds weird in the past tense, it's Spencerian, and he knows immediately what I'm actually trying to say now. And this one's for Cesar. I told him about Efisen, and that took a few things to explain there, just because feast is something that came up from a game involving Cesar a long time ago.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that about your boyfriend Devin. Wonderful guy, by the way. It was so nice to meet him. But I have a similar situation with my wife Allison, where if I ask her a question that seems like total nonsense, she now knows that the answer is an anagram. So, for example, if I ask her, "Hey, honey, what do you call like an underwater vessel that's like halfway into a city?" And she's like, "What are you talking about? Like, stop already." And I say, "It's a semi-urban submarine."
Oh no.
You know? And she's like, "Okay, very good." So this is like a sort of a not quite daily, but I would say frequent occurrence in this household. And fortunately, we are still together despite that. So yeah, so there you have it. I'm sure everybody has their favorite anagrams of that nature, and maybe you can torment the non-Scrabble players in your life with similar questions. Just throwing that out there. So, yeah, so in any case, I think what we'll do here is we are going to cut to a short break to get reset for our third game of the day between Edicaro and Dave Wiegand. Jesse, any final thoughts on the two games we've seen so far before we cut to that break?
I'm really happy so far with the quality, of the games. We're never sure, when we come on if there's going to say be a blowout, be it due to completely imbalanced drawing or due to perhaps more mistakes than we'd like to see, when it's the higher level players. But it's been really strong. There's just been little things as in terms of choices. Obviously, the transposition with Baiju is probably the notable one in the two games so far. But no, it's overall been really well played on all sides, and I'm just enjoying watching it unfold where the games are not really decided until close to the end so far. So let's hope for the same for game 3. You know what, Will? I'm going to take you up on your offer from before. So for this particular round, I'm going to say we will be back after a very short break and ready to call game 3 in just a few. We'll be right back. Bye. Welcome back to our live coverage of World Cup 2025. Two of us in the booth here today. Jesse Matthews coming to you live from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And then our esteemed host, the master of ceremonies, whatever you want to call him, William Anderson. Take us away from here, William.
Beautiful, Jesse. We've all missed the Jesse Matthews intros, so we had to get one from start to finish there. But yeah, we're back. Round 24, Etta Caro versus Dave Wiegand. So Dave Wiegand is a player that I've done a few videos on. Etta Caro, though, extremely strong player from Nigeria, actually the defending champion of the Collins division at this event. There are so many good players that winning these divisions repeatedly is a very tall order. But if Etta goes on a win streak from here on out, maybe he's got a shot at it, given the fact that things are so knotted up at the top. Nobody is running away with this division. So despite the fact that he's 13-10, he's pretty close to the top. A winning streak could do it for him. So this is a pivotal game as he goes first. But for North American players, Jesse, Dr. Bing, Dave Wiegand needs little introduction.
He is well known on the scene in North America. He has made the permanent cutover to Collins at this point, but he was playing NWL or its predecessor. Any of the acronyms or abbreviations, or I don't even know at this point. There's been like NTCWL and CWL and who knows what. But anyways, Dave used to play that a lot beforehand. So between that and the switch over to Collins, anyone who's been a part of North American Scrabble in the last few decades is very familiar with Dave. Especially on the West Coast, just given how dominant Dave has been for a long time and near the top of the game. And probably, I don't know, we could have a whole discussion about this. Perhaps the best, if not one of the very best still playing to have not won a world championship, but that's probably a longer point of discussion.
Yeah, that you hate to use that moniker for him or that title for him, but I think it might actually hold. He is a truly world-class player that just through random chance and tough breaks at the wrong time has just not managed to win a world championship yet. And the day that he does, and I think it is destined to happen at some point, nobody will be surprised. I think I said on a previous day broadcast that he had actually been in a finals before and gotten terrible tiles against Nigel, but I was actually misremembering, I should say. He was in one of the 8-player brackets or 4-player brackets. I can't remember which, and he was in a semifinal matchup with Nigel Richards and drew horrendous tiles to get knocked out. So he's come close a number of times. As I said, nobody will be surprised. Etta opening with our favorite yak variant, Zo, DZHO. I wonder if he spotted Zloty, the plural, ZLOTE, and whether he's choosing this for some kind of defensive purpose. Could have gotten 14 extra points for the Z there, Jesse.
Yeah, I think perhaps just a bit trigger happy on that one because, at face value, yes, it does declutter and leave a pretty decent leave there, but I think you got to go for the points in this case and accept that the lead won't be quite as good. So probably just a bit too quick on the opening play there. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, just looking at Dave's rack, it looks kind of nice. Like maybe sometimes you could imagine having a bingo for him, but I think the 2 R's and the Y combined with that O make it so he just doesn't quite have one. And you can see that Etta has potable, and now he has set up tabletop, both of which are valid in the Collins dictionary. So he is spoiled for choice, but only if the O remains open here. It does feel like there's a decent chance of that happening, Jesse, unless Dave plays something like Oi here. Maybe Dory is a more thematic play for Dave to undouble his R's. And if he chooses that, which makes total sense that he would, Etta's going to come back with that first bingo of the game. So this is a tough one here where the quote unquote best play might lead to an inferior outcome for Dave.
Yeah, just to answer a few questions from the chat, Potable is a Collins-only bingo that's on Edda's rack. Tabletop works in both the North American Lexica and also in Collins. So those are all choices that are available here. I see that zlote, the definition was asked about. That's one of the plural forms of zloty. It comes from Polish. It is a type of coin. Zlotych is the other plural for that one. My boyfriend is Czech in part, so the Eastern European languages and their many ways of pluralizing, I actually understand it a bit better now as I'm learning elementary Czech, and Polish is related with the way that it pluralizes as well. So that's the nature there. Zloty is the singular, I believe, in this case, and then zloty and zlotik are the two plurals.
Any Polish Scrabble in the future for you, Jesse?
I'm not sure about Polish. maybe Czech if I did.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
When speaking out the words, sometimes they sound very, very similar, but they're not exactly the same.
Got it.
So
Sorry,
probably
I meant Czech.
Czech.
I apologize. Yes, but that would be a treat to sort of pull your inner Nigel there and be able to play in another language at a high level. So
a bit of work to do yet.
Yeah, as most of us could say. So yeah, Dave, seeing a Z and a bingo go down for Edda's first two plays and saying to himself, uh-oh, I guess I have some, comeback to do here. He's got an X though, and I'm really curious about this decision for Dave because this feels like the logical spot for the X. Dave has two E's on his rack, and maybe you would normally look to play EX to keep a more balanced leave. But opening this top row is really scary, to say nothing about these overlaps right here with such a big scoring spot parallel to TE. I wonder whether just playing XI is a much safer variation, giving way less back. That's what Dave is going to do. I think I like this choice, Jesse.
Yeah. I'm definitely a fan. Leaves lots of possibilities, scores well in the meantime. It's really the best of both worlds, I would say. Oh, we got a little bit of Polish going on here in the chat. Hello, Jack Overby. He is asking in Polish there how you are doing, and good day is right after that. It's very similar to how you would say it in Czech, so I can recognize that. That's nice. I see Victor Bakta is mentioning Polska mention. So there you go. We must have someone here from Poland or Polish. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome to our Polish Scrabble audience. I'm not sure. Maybe I need to consider that that's a bigger part of my overall audience than I expected. So that's great to see. It is a very worldwide flavor, not only in our audience on the YouTube chat, and we thank everybody very much for stopping by, but also in English language. Scrabble as a whole has such a worldwide flavor, whether that's, because of the English language spreading to parts of the globe through whatever. We can talk about the geopolitics of that, maybe being less savory or whatever, but it does feel awesome to go to these tournaments that have players from all around the globe. One of the main draws of playing Collins, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite things. Commentarying gigs when we had more of them as well. It was a nice chance to be able to get to know players between rounds when they would come to and from the table one. And yeah, the events in Johor Bahru and in Malaysia in general with Michael Tang, when that was happening, great chances to meet people from all over the world. I saw someone mentioning a previous commentary gig that I did there once upon a time with the well-loved Chris May. Yes, indeed. He was an incredible person. And I actually just heard from his wife Ksenia very recently. I was just checking in to see how they were doing. Ksenia went with their daughter Natasha on a vacation with the family, and we're hoping to get together when I have a layover for work in Australia soon. For those who don't know, I work for a major airline as a flight attendant, so that's part of why life is so busy and all that, but do get to check in outside of Scrabble with wonderful people from all over the world as well. So for those who are wondering, Natasha, that's Chris's daughter, and Ksenia, they're doing very, very well. Back to the board. Sorry, I went on a tangent there.
Not at all. Chris, truly a a huge loss to the community, very tragic. I actually, at some point on my YouTube to-do list, I have a game where Chris made a particularly incredible play at the end of the game that I would love to do as a little tribute to Chris May, one of our great players from Australia and great commentators as well that you allude to. So I don't remember exactly when it is that he passed, a year or two ago now, but it was a huge loss for us all. As a few plays coming down here. Edda playing was with WU. That's a play that is often correct when you have those letters, Jesse. Playing what and was tends to be right. Dave playing Keb parallel to his X. That looked like clearly the best play. And now Etta playing hog for 13. A couple other options here, but this looks perfectly solid to get another S hook on the board. There's actually a bunch of them now all over the place, balancing his rack, and he has drawn a bingo. We'll see where he's going to be able to play it. Looks like he spotted tier sets right here, but he's going to have other bingos elsewhere as well. So Dave with that blank, Edda with a great bingo rack. We are going to see some fireworks flying in short order here.
And we like to see that. It definitely gets your heart leaping and can be difficult at the board sometimes when there's just like this back and forth fireworks. But yeah, like you said, exciting. And certainly for us watching, we love to see nice high scoring games with beautiful plays. Just catching up on the chat here as well. Yeah, Chris did a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Will.
No, I'm just wondering, is there any chance that Dave, with this beautiful set of tiles, does he have to play basically here? He actually doesn't have that many words that he can play. And I just wonder, depending on what he chooses, is it possible that he might look to play something just like Ixia here, just to bide his time? If all he can do is play something like Airtime right here, Airtime, Am I Right? Or Triciate. Those are his 3 playable bingos here, all of which are a little bit scary, opening up the triple lane. Maybe he would elect to play it safe. I don't know. I'm probably just going to go ahead and play the bingo here, but we've seen examples, for example, Nigel Richards yesterday passing up bingos multiple times when the position called for it. So that would be really interesting, Jesse, to see Dave play Ixia over something like Airtime here.
Yeah, Ixia is a really nice play. I would be strongly considering it. It's hard to pass up on a bingo. I haven't looked to see what it would simulate as either way. Ixia is very tempting, just given how strong the lead is, just how little it gives back, relatively speaking. But on the other hand, if you're playing something like Hog and you're looking from Dave's point of view, Hog does not score that much. There wasn't all that many scoring places on the board, mind you. So you have to assume that Edda's rack is reasonably strong. Maybe not super strong, but reasonably strong. So it does make for an interesting case, for something like Ixia potentially, as opposed to, I don't know what the static sim shows, but maybe with some inferential consideration, perhaps Ixia is not the worst choice after a play like Hog.
That's a great point. You definitely are looking at that previous play for any clue that you can get when you're deciding here. I'm not sure that Dave ever really seriously considered not bingoing. I think he basically was just looking from the get-go of what bingo am I going to play here? And sometimes it's really difficult to actually generate plays like Ixia when you are so much in, all right, I got a blank, it's bingo time. That's just what has to be the right decision. And this might have been the right decision, just to be clear. Airiest is definitely a better choice than Am I Right or Airtime. Placing the T in the triple lane, much more difficult to use the T productively than an E out in space. So maybe that makes Airiest a little bit better than Ixia. You are getting 40 plus extra points for that. But Edda instantly hammers it with a bingo of tier sets, Jesse, and not the best post bingo draw by any means for Dave.
Dave's getting wooed. He has been wooed big time, or wooed actually, more specifically, if we're going to use one of the new words. Perhaps woo will make a token appearance here. You never know. Tier sets, for those who are wondering, is a Collins only bingo that I'm like 99% sure of. So
You're right.
This one does not work in NWL.
Yep, correct. So that is true. And but nevertheless, Edda playing it quickly and drawing pretty well, I have to say. Those letters are going to become a bingo potentially through the E, maybe somewhere else that I'm not immediately seeing, but there are definitely 8-letter words, and Etta has spotted them as well. So while Dave struggles with yet another set of U's and W's, we're going to see Etta land another consecutive bingo here to continue his warpath up the scoreboard here. Is there any? Let's see. It looks like all 3 of his bingos through the E score 70 points. So he'll just have to think for a short moment about which he prefers positionally, Jesse. And he's going to take an even bigger lead. But, oh, man, the blank. Dave's drawn the second blank just in the nick of time.
Oh, Juve. A nice little shout out to my username most of the time that I use. I use Juvenescences as my username most of the time now. I was soccer guy back in the day, for those who know. I grew up playing soccer. But Juvenescences involves all the letters of Jesse plus a few more. So thanks, Dave, although I don't think you actually know that I'm in the booth.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he'll find out after if he watches these back, in which case, thanks, Dave. Good job. You're doing well. Hope good luck to you going forward. Hope you ended up winning the tournament. Thanks for stopping by my channel. That's my message to Dave. He's got the second blank, and we call Dave Dr. Bing for a very good reason, Jesse. He is incredibly gifted at finding 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I hesitate to stop counting length word length words. So he is so good at those long words. This is a classic position, in my opinion, that kind of separates Dave from the rest of the pack. He has 1 playable bingo. It is extremely obscure, and it looks like he spotted it. Look at that. You can see, kind of like the Terminator from Terminator 2, slowly the little particles form into place to form the Terminator, which in this case is the weird bingo of Wrongus through the R of Ariest. He spotted it so fast, Jesse. It never gets old.
It's just amazing, honestly, being able to find that. I mean, I think blank vision, any of us who have studied for long enough, we talk about blank vision, and that's as we're able to, it's one thing when you have all the letters, like say if you're studying with a tool like Aerolith, where okay, there's 8 letters here, and I just have to find the word, and all the letters are already there. It's another level where you have 1 or 2 blanks, and you have to figure out what the blanks need to be, and then find the word. It's another level there. So something like wrongus, amazing, already, if you're finding it, just all letters there, but to be able to correctly make the blanks what they have to be and play it when it's that low probability, it's just a testament to his skill, honestly.
Yeah, that is a real big boy find right there. A Collins only 8-letter word with a blank G containing WU in it. That's very, very impressive stuff by him, but nobody should be surprised at all, as he needed that very badly to keep pace in this game. Only bingo available. And now Etta with a bit of a tricky situation, because in general, a play like Defy right here would be very, very strong for Etta. 42 points, leaving the good leave of ERT, but leaving this S open, Jesse, just seems so crazy at this score. I fully expect him to maybe take a lower score. Let me get that out to block off that S here.
Yeah, and if he was going to be locking the S, something like phase, I assume, would be among the candidate positions to consider. It is tough to turn down Defy for so many points, but we don't just, one of the things that makes us not machines or robots when considering the game is just the human factor. When we're looking at the board, and a machine, for better or for worse, doesn't necessarily do that. We have different variables that we feed it. We can give it partial inferred racks to try and help it bridge that gap. But it's one of the things that marks a human player, is just considering little things like this. So what do you think if you were to be doing something more blatantly blocking or taking out the S? Well, I mean, phase is there. I think phasist is another consideration. Given the number of E's left, would you lean towards a longer play? What are you thinking about when you look there?
So the two ideas you laid out that block the S are FEYS, that is valid in the Collins lexicon, or FEYEST, and that is valid in both of our North American and Collins lexicons. I think the biggest thing for me is when I'm evaluating just playing FEYS, I'm looking into the tile pool and I'm looking for the F, the other F, it's there. The M's, they're there. The K, all right, well, the K is on the board, but these other tiles that play alongside the Y, I guess the B's are also on the board. But I feel like the threat of the F and the other M potentially coming down and scoring a bunch of points is just something I would be thinking about. It's not a deal breaker, but I would want to know, what are the odds if I just play FEYS? Do I get hit with a 50-point play in response anyway? Maybe one that wouldn't have played productively through the S. So I feel like you could then look at Feist as a play that's a little bit safer, especially if, you know, some of the other consonants that play in this spot have been used up. Especially, again, this T obstructs a lot of the plays going down. So that's sort of what I'd be thinking about. Then you got to factor in the fact that Phase scores 9 fewer points, but leaves a much better bingo leave. Now I'm looking around the board to see, does that actually help me? Maybe I feel good about the fact that FEYS leaves DE on my rack and sets me up to play something here for a really good score next turn. So all that being said, that leaves me spending 3 or 4 minutes on this turn and probably making the wrong decision.
It would be one of those things, you know, we talk about people like to kibitz and do post-mortem after a game and all that. The way that Nigel post-mortems, if at all, is definitely markedly different. Just one of the natures of things is Nigel doesn't really do the sort of tracking for analysis purposes that we do, you know, when we want to feed our games into various analytical engines after. The game's over for Nigel as soon as the game is over. So that just changes the way that he tracks everything as well. And at the end of the game, I don't think, maybe you've had a different experience, Will, but when I've talked to Nigel, it's maybe very briefly, if that, about the game. He doesn't really go into great detail, you know, about it, unless you really prod him. But I don't know if your experience has been the same.
It's definitely true. Yeah, we've seen it on stream too, where he's just decided, you know, all right, my opponent's asked me one question about the game, so it is time to square the tiles and move on to the next game, essentially. I just want to point out that there is a potentially crazy sequence that could happen here. Dave, at this score, he could play Vamoose through this S, which he has set up on his rack right now. But I think positionally, he is really not going to love putting the V out in space here at a deficit. He needs to keep the board open. A great way for him to do that, really clever way for him to do that, would be a move using the new 3-letter word Avi, as in avatar. This is a great way to create a diversion that might keep this S open, or if Etta plays to the S, you've got a lifeline here through this A. If Dave spots this choice, he's going to get tripled on with Hetiras by Etta for a bazillion points. So this is a situation where I feel like if Dave makes his most realistic play here to try to keep things open, and there he has seen it, a move is going to be played right here, Jesse. I think that is a brilliant play by Dave. It is not going to work out for him in this specific instance.
And that's the tough one, right? It's just like sometimes that's just the some would say either beauty or cruelty or both of Scrabble, is that making the best play, or yeah, the best play in this case, just comes back to bite you in the butt, where perhaps a play that isn't so optimal when simming it might have saved you otherwise, you know. But that's a whole bunch of stuff that, again, people like Nigel are really good at, just tossing it aside as like, nope, it was the right play, it just didn't work, you know. And that would be the case here as well. But it looks like he has gone for Vamos instead.
And he saved himself in doing so, even though there's no way he could know that. Yeah, a move seemed, if he was really ready to hit the panic button, he might have made that play. He clearly saw it. He had it lined up. he would have insta-lost the game. And now, amazingly, after his play of Vamoose, very fun word, no bingos available somehow with this great looking set of tiles for Edda. Heaters, reheats, ethers with an A. None of those fit on the board, which is kind of crazy to think. Of course, Dave's draw, not very good, I have to say. The Q, not the tile he necessarily wanted to see, but Dave has practically managed to save himself with his choice there.
Yeah, I'm sure when he analyzes later whatever happens in this game, he'll be happy it didn't end after making the other play. But he knows he's seen the other play. I mean, we've seen it lined up there. So the choice as to why he didn't, it'd be interesting if we somehow could get into his head after the game and ask him what the rationale was. Because, you know, sometimes you do have in those moments amazing insight into what people at the very top of the game are thinking. He doesn't have the luxury of knowing Edda's rack in this case, but can perhaps make some inferences or thoughts about it based on previous plays and what's left in the pool. So it would be interesting to hear his point of view if we were to ever have the chance to do that.
Yeah, if we, for now, we can mostly just speculate, and potentially what he's thinking is that the score of the game is close enough and there's just enough open space on the board in his estimation that he doesn't have to go crazy throwing open another triple. He's played a much more sort of careful play that doesn't yield nearly as much back in terms of counterplay, triples, which would have actually happened in this instance. I think it's just an example of Dave sort of saying, I don't think my situation is so dire that I need to throw caution to the wind all the way quite yet. Let's just see if I can draw something a little better. And maybe on a subsequent turn, I'll try to make a play that's a little more aggressive. I do think if I'm sitting in his chair and I see a move, which is not a given, I'm playing that here. I'm worried about the board after Vamoose not having enough opportunities for me, knowing that Edda is a defensive player, that he's likely to play something that takes another option away from me, that I'm going to have even fewer options than I currently do on this somewhat barren board. And I would have gone for it and I would have gotten hit by the massive triple. So Edda revealing his S and then taking it and bringing it back. I feel like, does that kind of commit you to actually playing your S here, or now that you've shown it to Dave, Jesse?
I feel like in my case it would. But then that's kind of the way that I approach is like, ideally, if I have shown a tile, I don't like to give that free information for longer than I have to. For those of us who are tracking and keeping inferences in mind as a factor with opponent play, as soon as I've revealed a tile, I would rather use it unless it's truly horrifically the wrong play. That's me personally. I do have to point out, we were discussing something similar with Wellington, earlier in the day, just with respect to putting tiles down and revealing them. So I wonder if it's perhaps within the microcosm specifically of perhaps the way that some of the tournaments in Nigeria or across Africa, maybe that's part of perhaps they feed off of each other and maybe do that more often. I mean, it happens everywhere, of course, but I'm just noting that it's come up so far with both of them, both excellent players that can see many options and think out loud. It's kind of the way that I refer to it. I've seen other players, and a player named Albert Hahn in Calgary, who doesn't play as much anymore. He was a think out loud kind of player that would sometimes put things down, pick it up. Yeah, so it's just interesting. Some people do that, and others just wait, or they do the Nigel thing. They wait 15 seconds to 20 and then just put down one tile at a time every time.
Yeah, that is an amazing thing. Wow, look at that. Edda with Hangman on his rack. If Dave were to try to open something up aggressively, Edda could potentially, depending on what that opening is, be able to just pounce with that 7-letter word, spotted it instantly. But a really interesting play by Edda of Seater. I actually think, even though there were good plays right here, such as Hugh, or if you want, you could tack on the R and the S here. I really like the choice of Seater. It just takes so much space. Really, all the space that you might have imagined right here being formerly open to Dave It no longer is, and it really leaves just this D of Dariels, which is very, very weak, not that good of a bingo line, still open. So I do like the exhaustion aspect of Edda's play of Seater. So much board is now kind of inhospitable to bingos. And yeah, we're going to see human for 53 in response. But oh my God, there's actually an insane play here, Jesse, of Ma Huang here. That is insane. 65 points, the only thing that could possibly be better than human, which again, that's kind of a nice thing about Cedar, leaving the H left over. You can follow up with plays just like this.
And I feel like that was probably his ultimate consideration in holding back the H. Is like you said, Cedar uses up so much real estate on the board. We've talked about board control and blocking to some extent, and Cedar is it accomplishes several things. Like you said, it takes up board real estate. It's kind of blocky in a less obvious sense. It's when people think of blocking, they think of a C, a V, a Q, something that's not going to necessarily have something playable beside it very easily, if at all. R is like that on the right side of it, where it's just the E and nothing else. And then it reaches down further than Seath would have and takes away really anything in that quadrant of the board to bingo with, and keeps the H for him at the same time to do something like this on the next turn. So brilliant for multiple reasons.
Yeah, great analysis. Totally echoing that. Only drawback versus, really the 2-turn sequence of Seater into an H play there. As Alex in the chat says, human is the human play here, which is kind of a funny, that's true actually, compared to Ma Huang, which is almost inhuman to be able to find that sort of thing. But yeah, the only issue here, sometimes you might regret leaving the E hook of humane open when Dave can respond for a really big score. But Dave is going to play Rioja at the top of the board. This makes a lot of sense to me, Jesse, for the reasons that we were talking about. Only the D of Dariels are really available to him. He needs some new spot, and he's doing his best to create it.
And at this point, if you're ETA, there's not really a straightforward way of shutting things down entirely. We can safely say in the context of bingoing that 2 of the quadrants are done. So really the right side of the board has been taken care of. So the issue here is controlling on the left, just to make sure. Because at this point, we assume, like we were saying earlier in the morning, that they're going to score high 20s, low 30s on average. So really what would swing things back for Dave is a bingo play. So you're looking at things that will still score reasonably well for you when possible, while also controlling the final half or the 2 remaining quadrants of the board where this is still possible.
Yeah, definitely. That is good analysis of the position. Got to note that Dave has drawn a bingo into the D of Dariels of finagled. So that's definitely something that could rear its head. I just wonder how often a bingo to the D of Dariels actually gets Dave the win. I wonder if, depending on how many tiles are in the bag, that's going to dictate what Dave elects to do, to either take his bingo, or is he going to go for the win by playing fewer tiles. It would be great if he had a way to, there's just not enough tiles in the bag, but if he could somehow play something with humane that put the F in this spot, like flag or something like that, right? You'd love to play this, not emptying the bag, and maybe trying to draw something through either the letters of Rioja or the D of Dariels, but it's Edda's turn. That's the only complicating factor. He gets a chance to block more of the board and leave fewer tiles in the bag. So unless Edda plays an invalid word, which is incredibly unlikely, although we saw a couple late game phonies in our first couple games on the stream, Jesse, that were very shocking. Chris Lipe playing bonily when pretty much any variant of bony or bonier would have won the game.
Aww.
And then also we saw, I believe, Josh Sokol playing Bune and getting away with it against Enoch Nawali. So it's not unheard of. We've seen it a couple times.
Interesting. Yeah, Buna I know of, and then Unbi, of course, is the four with those letters.
Right.
The blending of two words, that's interesting. No, I hadn't heard about all the things I've been enjoying. It's a holiday long weekend in Canada, so I was outside enjoying the sunshine. I had not heard these things. Yeah.
Anybody that's looked at my skin tone knows that I am not often outside enjoying the sunshine, but that's all good. Somebody's got to be in the crypt doing Scrabble content and avoiding vitamin D at all costs, and that is what that is how I live my life. So
I cannot say that I avoid vitamin D in any way.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's well rebutted there. So yeah, it's just for Edda, I think he's in very good shape here. He has to know that. It looks like first of all, it looks like he has laid his arm right in front of that camera. But just so you all know, this is the beauty of the telestrator. I'll do it in alphabetical order. His tiles are A, D, G, L, N, N, E. Oh, come on. Right as I finish drawing. All right. Well, there you have it. So his tiles now visible again. So after doing some of his bookkeeping, he is going to be looking at what should very closely resemble this list of tiles right here. And I'm not sure what you can really glean from that, Jesse. I feel like there's stuff through the R, stuff through the D of Dariels, and it's going to be tough to block both of those too.
Yeah, and I think it's like you were saying before, as far as playing to the D, it's hard to see many, if any, scenarios where Dave can possibly win by bingoing from there, whereas in the right situation, something in the top left, maybe. So I think you just have to think about the points factor there, really, and then it makes it more of a controlled situation, where you choose what to limit or completely shut down and accept that, hey, maybe you won't win by as much. Perhaps there's a higher chance of getting a bingo at the bottom, but knowing mathematically that that's what isn't going to win, that you're okay with perhaps not winning by as much. Because really the issue here, especially because it's so tight at the top, is yes, spread's going to help when you have a lot of people who are all clustered together. But at the end of the day, if you have a more secure win with fewer points, or you have a less secure win with greater spread, I don't know, I would prefer definitely just to get the win in the first place. So I'd be looking at limiting severely, if not completely shutting down the top left quadrant, and yeah, just going from there. If I'm looking right now, I can see that he's looking at Lung above Rioja, and that really accomplishes that. Maybe an overlap on top of Lung were to be possible, for a decent score. But the issue here is not really that Dave might score, it's that he might score well with a bingo bonus. So I think Lung is a pretty sound option that basically takes care of the top left. And then if you're playing something like Finagle, I mean, Edda's not going to know that's what he has in his rack necessarily. But if you play something like that, you're in a way tipping your hat, and the game's kind of over, after that happens. So I think Lung's the one to go with here, but what do you think?
Well, Nug ends up being the play. I think for me, another big factor, and maybe this is pretty easy to dispense with if I'm Edda, is I just want to make sure I don't leave too many tiles in the bag that allows Dave to use this spot without emptying the bag. So the fact that he's used 3 tiles as opposed to 2, that's kind of the minimum criteria that I would like. I do feel you're suggesting that Lung would have gone
I'm
here?
sorry. I looked at the O in the wrong spot. Someone's pointed out in the chat.
Okay, got it.
My lack of 2-letter word vision, apparently. Neath. We are the knights who say neath today.
Well, you mentioned OT, but I feel like that would be a close second, and I try to make that play in my head all the time. But yeah, anything that goes across there, I'm sure there was some other stuff that would have actually played, would have been very thematically appropriate. Dave is now trying to think, can I ever actually win the game after playing finagled here? I feel like the answer is probably no. And then the question, I should say, becomes, then what? What do I do with that information? I guess what I'd be trying to do is play something in this area of the board that somehow opens, but that's just not possible thanks to the V of Vamoose. There's like no room over there. So you can look there all you want, but it feels like there's just no good way for Dave to open new space on the board. And that might sway me a little bit to just try and play Finagled now to cut the spread gap as best I can.
Yeah, I think it's the spread consideration here, because we were talking about on Edda's end about just taking the win in the first place, more likely just with a lower spread perhaps. And I think from Dave's perspective, you have to think of it the same way, that maybe you could potentially somehow find an optimal sequence that would win in a 1 in a bajillion, or whatever the actual number is, or just accept that it's quite unlikely in this case, and to minimize the loss of spread points, where it will be quite important with everyone clustered together with similar wins and losses to keep your edge in any way. When you have the same wins, the edge is of course spread. So yeah, he's decided to do that here. He's put down Finagled and accepting this is not going to be his game as far as the win goes, and just minimizing the loss.
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. For those of us that do not like the point spread as a tiebreaker, you're probably saying, come on, that's, why not go for the win here? But actually, the win was basically not possible to get, barring some kind of completely insane scenario. And because we do use that cumulative margin of victory as our primary tiebreaker, I do think Dave was 100% right in this instance to go in this direction. I am curious to know, is there any possible way that he could have plucked something amazing from the bag? I certainly feel like the E would have been required, right? Like, what's the best way to get some points here? Maybe something threatening humane that gives you also another good spot somewhere else. Like, what if you draw a peck out of the bag? Does that help you at all? If that doesn't win, I really don't know that anything would here. So, do feel like Finagled probably not it, but I also don't think anything else is it here. So tough situation for Dave. He did all he could, Jesse. I think a lot of great plays by him. Wrongus stands out among them, but Edda also playing fantastically well.
Yeah, and I think, Wrongus really gave him a shot to be back in the game in the first place. If we think back to that position in the game, he was looking really, really bad, for chances to win, unless he were to find that. And I can only imagine whatever the sim would show for Quackle, that it likely was still a lowish percentage after that play. He just had a really tough decision after that, where it turns out a move, he didn't play it while seeing it, would have lost after that. But that Vamoose, the play that he made, while it was also a good one, it did limit the board on that side severely. And I think Cedar's just a really nice play as well from Edda. Like, when we think about his position there, like giving him lots of credit on his side as well. Some deep thinking to anticipate ways to keep on scoring and keep up his momentum over the next moves after that. We think about the spread right now, it's 15 points as far as the difference between them right now. And part of that is him keeping that H after Cedar and scoring really well with it on the very next turn. So yeah, some excellent play that we've seen on both sides of the board here with, some perhaps not traditional immediate decisions that were made that weren't by any means wrong, just different, and just showing some excellent thought.
Yeah, agree. Very instructive game for us and hopefully for all of you, as Jesse and I do our very best to guide you through the action. When two really good Scrabble players get together, I always feel like it's potentially a great learning experience, and that's part of the joy of this. But also, it's just fun to watch people play crazy words. So there's an educational component, as well as an entertainment component. And Edda, potentially, he was about to play Pick and Paya. He was thinking about Pale or Payal. Those actually work out a little bit better, scoring 32, just knowing that Dave is very, very likely to end the game next turn with this flexible INE combo. You might as well go for the maximum points and leave value. And this is actually Edda's optimal choice here, this or Payal in the same spot. So nicely done by him to nail this end game. not a given unless your name starts with N and ends with Nigel Richards. And yeah, so over to Dave in just a moment. Etta still has not hit his clock here, but when he does, it'll be up to Dave to find his best play. I'm guessing he's already spotted it. It would be NIE and Humane, Jesse. Well, I give him nearly 100% odds to nail that play as well.
Yeah, and then I was just looking at the chat and just thinking, we were talking earlier in the day about just Scrabble getting you to say things that you wouldn't never normally say when you're calling out plays. I see Mystique Serenity was like, oh yeah, urine. You know, so saying that in any context, but looking at this board,
Beautiful.
that's just a great example right there.
Yeah, I love urine. I love urine here. I love that you have urine here as well as other options. So there you go. You can please, I mean, my refrain when I was Twitch streaming more regularly is I would catch myself saying that, and then I would say, please don't clip that, which of course is an 100% guarantee that somebody is going to instantly clip that faster than I can imagine. So yeah, so all right, there we go. Dave finishes this one off, and he gets pretty close. I have to say, if I'm Dave, I'm feeling like, well, I got hit with a whole bunch of bingos, tabletop, tier sets, Darioles, 3 in the first 6 turns. And I only lost by 17 points. I'll take that here. Minimal damage to his tiebreaker.
Yeah, overall, really, really strong game. All really good games this morning, you know, where despite some swings back and forth, nothing was really decided until close to the end. Although perhaps this one, difficult today for him to recover around the halfway point, you know, with wrongness giving him a chance, but still really hotly contested games for all of them this morning. Excellent play that we're seeing so far. I'm just going to see if I can get the standings list up to date.
Maybe we'll cut to overhead, Mike, too. I'd be curious to see if they put together a move situation.
Yeah.
They might be done chatting. Let's give him a sec. All right. I think that conversation, we had a couple sentences of it there, Jesse, but sometimes when it's over, it's over. Especially Dave, who even in the most heroic situations where he's done something absolutely incredible to win a game, he is pretty reserved about it. He is not prone to WWE style reactions to his own gameplay. And, we see that from many of our top Scrabble players. There's not a ton of huge gesticulations or emoting going on. Some of that stuff at this level is kind of wasted energy, and these tournaments are very taxing on your energy. So if you can adopt a sort of mode of approaching each game in a little bit more calm of a way, that probably stands you in good stead.
Yes, keeping that zen at all times. Speaking of words that are inconsistently pluralized, depending on your book. Yes, the zen attitude. And I think of a few players. I believe Marlon Hill is playing next week as well. One of those people who is definitely very expressive, animated. When you're at a tournament, it can be a treat to hear him talk about games sometimes mid-game while you're watching from the next sport over. We have all sorts of characters in our community.
Yeah, Marlon. I got a Marlon story, which is that he vowed prior to a game with me that he was going to try and swear off profanity. And in that game, I bingoed 3 straight times against him and then scored 70 points with my Z, and he shouted Jiminy Christmas at the top of his lungs. So he adhered to his promise, no profanity, I guess, unless you're from the 1800s or something like that, and a phrase of that nature would offend you. But yeah, still, I can't blame him but I guess I'm not sure whether I should be proud or feel guilty as being the player to elicit that oath from Marlon Hill, Jesse.
Yes, it has immortalized itself as well. You know, there are still people who will casually say Jiminy Christmas, just knowing that particular story. There used to be a tournament we'd play in Jiminy Peak as well that he would often go to. So Jiminy Peak Christmas, there's been all sorts of like meme variations on that lovely little phrase in our community. Well, they've squared up.
Nice.
I'm assuming this means that lunch break is coming up very soon.
Lunch break is coming, so we're going to do the best we can right now to just give you a standings update. Not all of the standings are in. We've just seen Etta defeat Dave Wiegand, so Dave will not be in first place. Going into lunch break, it's going to be either Wellington Jighere or Josh Castellano. If he wins, we'll jump into first place. It could potentially be Alex Seaholm if he wins and Josh loses. Too much going on. Let me just explain it all by saying you'll have to tune in this afternoon for a standings update on what the heck is going on in Collins. But in the afternoon session, we will be returning to the WoW division. And Nigel Richards has lost his last 2 games. So he was 20-1 going into the day. He's now 21-3. Wow, that is kind of shameful, Jesse. What a sad record.
Indeed. How dare he ever lose? You know, completely unacceptable. What is his spread at 20-3 right now?
2,079. So Nigel 21-3 plus 2,000, his spread towering over everybody in the field. But now with 7 games in the tournament to go, Nigel is 3 games ahead of his closest challenger, Jon Shreve, at 18-6. So as long as Nigel is not many games ahead, we are still going to have interesting, meaningful games coming from Nigel Richards this afternoon. And that is plenty of reason to celebrate, Jesse.
Yeah, and I think it makes things really interesting. We talk about Nigel-esque moves, you know, where things that wouldn't necessarily sim near the top of the list can be made. Because when you have Nigel just enjoying the experience for what it is, we've talked about that already. If he's just looking to win the game or win the tournament, there are certain plays where you might lose the game, hypothetically speaking, but win the tournament. That might come up as you get further and further in with fewer and fewer rounds to play. So I know when I have the ability to watch like the rest of you this afternoon that I'll be looking to see some of those plays where maybe he's making a play that makes more sense in the bigger picture of winning the tournament. It's hard to say, but then if Nigel just enjoys each game as it is, he might not do that. So it's the man, the myth, the legend, not just William, the other man, the myth, the legend. That would be Nigel himself. Very, very exciting. But I guess this means we're probably on that point where we have to cut out for lunch, and that means I have to go. Sadly, my time in the booth has come to a close already.
I know, very quick stint for you, Jesse, but a lot of great feedback. A lot of people loving that you were able to hop on with me today in the YouTube chat, even getting messages about it that people are very excited for you to be back in the booth and just love the energy you bring. So thank you very much, Jesse. It's been a treat to commentate 3 games with you. Hoping for more of the same at some time in the future. And yeah, any final thoughts from you before we close out our morning session? Go get some food and come back with some Nigel this afternoon.
Final thoughts? Well, first, I on purpose didn't talk too much about people commenting about me personally in the chat, so I could focus on everybody else that was on stream and just you, the players. And fans in general. I appreciate it. Thank you. For those who don't know, I was one of the first people that was doing commentary back when that started to become a thing where organizations took a chance on us and decided to start to fund or at least permit live streaming in some way. So I appreciate those who have given the opportunity. I was doing it for a long time. Life came up. But when Will invited me to come back for a little bit, I couldn't not do it. And it's been a treat to be able to interact with you again. And yes, Will, I would like to do this some more. And I'd love to talk to all of you more again as well. it's kind of fun not having to be the main host now. Although, you know, there's main host vibes that come up once in a while. It's like, this is Will's show. This is Will's show. Leave it alone.
You're too good at it, Jesse. We got to get you in that host role again. And yeah, it's just that the name on this channel is Will Anderson, or else I would be giving it straight to you for this. So yeah, it's been a treat. Thank you so much for hopping aboard with me. And yeah, with that, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a little bit less than 2 hours with 4 games from the WoW division here at the 2025 Word Cup, brought to you by Word Game Players Organization, WGPO, and Collins Coalition, Coco Scrabble. You can learn more about both of those great organizations organizing this tournament at wordgameplayers.org and cocoscrabble.org. So with that, we'll say goodbye for now, but we'll say goodbye to Jesse, but we'll be back in just a little bit less than 2 hours, as I said, with more Nigel Richards and WoW Division from the Word Cup.
Alrighty, and then before we go, that's okay. We're back. Okay, I was going to say, before we go, I saw a question in the chat about who the next commentator is. We have to see who's going to completely outdo me and eclipse me this afternoon. William, who is your co-commentator?
Yeah, very exciting. It's going to be my good buddy, Rafi Stern, who was in the driver's seat for a long time last year. I think he came in second to Jackson Smylie. So somebody that knows exactly what it takes to compete at the highest level at the Word Cup. Very excellent game analyst as well, just as you are, Jesse. So excited to work alongside Rafi. There's your answer to that question. So
there we go.
Take us out. You take us out now for sure.
Alrighty, yes, Rafi's going to be here for the afternoon. Fantastic. One of the longest running high-level West Coast Scrabble players for NWL. WoW, basically the North American Lexicon. So he'll have some very insightful analysis. He's got some fun stories too. Let me see if you can prod some of those out of him. He's got lots of fun little Scrabble anecdotes from meetups to talk about. But in the meantime, since Will so kindly asked, signing out live from Vancouver remotely, and then Will from the complete opposite side of the continent. And from the Word Cup, we're signing out for a lunch break, and we'll see you back in the afternoon. Bye.